Today I will tell you the story of a boy who decided to choose a path that not every adult can bear. War, grueling training, and the loss of friends.
Almark fights with an enemy, wounded, he holds a weapon, and blood flows on the floor. In the north, fighting has been going on for half a century, and in the south, 100 years have passed since the end of the war, while a woman with children and a man communicate calmly. He says that because of the constant battles in these parts, mercenaries began to operate, and entire peoples died for nothing. Almark recognized his father and Commander Jeruz, who suggested they go home. He said that he was the deputy commander of the mercenary strike force Black Wolf Cavalry Corps, Kokoro. Almark, who was 5 years old, met the director of the academy, Jorg, for the first time and thanked him for his help. In the camp he reflects on the nomadic life of a mercenary and their constant search for battles that are their bread and butter. The narrator explains that Kokoro was walking along the front lines between the warring kingdoms of Filan and Gilba. The image shows a landscape with a river, trees and mountains in the background with no visible characters. He sternly reminds his companion that they are on reconnaissance and need to get ready, and he notices that it is too quiet around. He shouts loudly forward, and the other one apologizes, while the sounds of footsteps and determination on the faces of those around him can be heard. He screams in panic that he has no gold as a crowd of people approaches him. Several people are discussing how mercenaries, having lost everything, become bandits, and one of them tries to stop the other, calling him grandfather. He thinks about the Gilba camp and decides to take a risk, and his companion confirms his readiness to go. He grabbed the bearded man by the neck and laughed, saying that he was caught, but he tried to hiccup and move away. He exhaled and noted that the others had fled, watching the riders and the bodies on the ground. Almark asked the old man what he was doing there, and he replied that the place would soon turn into hell, and thanked him for saving him. He shouts at the soldiers to stop looting, and one of them apologizes, not understanding what is happening. Almark and his comrades are looking for winner, and someone is counting out loud, counting to 9. He orders to quickly mount the horses before Gilba arrives, and receives confirmation. He called out to someone, who replied that he had heard, and then another man joyfully announced his appearance. He warns that their people will pass by soon and advises to say the name Reese and get into any cart if you get tired. He explains on horseback that mercenaries are constantly wandering and sometimes transport women with children, and the old man asks in surprise if this is true. The old man says they will go, and the rider wishes him luck and tries to say something. He sighed and said that he had already left, expressing regret. In the Black Wolf Cavalry camp, people are resting near their tents, one of them is laughing cheerfully, and a woman is looking at them with a smile. He thanks the deputy commander and regrets that Gilba did not show up, and she expresses surprise and concern. Almark explained that they would be guarding the supply line of Filan's army, and the other man was surprised and asked what was going on. He said he knew the strange old man they had picked up and asked where he was now. He pointed to the cart, and the other replied that he would be right there. He thanks for what he said, and someone tries to call out to him. The old man was called out to, he turned his head in surprise, sitting by the cart against the backdrop of trees and the sky. He thanks for saving him and introduces himself as Jorg, while the other one starts the conversation with "by the way." He thanks Reese for saving his life, expressing his gratitude. Reese, the second in command, introduced himself and expressed his gratitude by touching the other man's head. He laughs and asks how he can thank him, and the old man tries to suppress his laughter. He said that he came from the kingdom of Garai and is the director of the Norsk Magic Academy, and his interlocutor clarified that this means he is a magician from the south. The old man said he had traveled halfway around the world in search of talented children, while another smilingly called him a joker. He explained that he had lost his staff and could only do this while the other silently drank tea by the tent. He watches in amazement as the glowing bird takes flight, leaving behind glowing feathers. He says in surprise that they were not lied to, expressing disbelief and amazement. He said that he had heard about the Norsk Academy, where they give a good education even to poor people with a talent for magic. The old man explains that the academy on the island of Norsk accepts children up to 9 years old, who after 6 years of training become wizards. He listens thoughtfully as another explains that mastering specialized magic requires 3 more years of high school. An elderly man with a long beard smiles as a bird lands on his hand while a pot boils on the fire nearby. He looks away silently with wounds on his face, and another person places a hand on his chest, expressing support. The man told the elder that the boy's name was Almark, he was 5 years old, and his mother died in childbirth. He says he is raising him alone because the life of a mercenary is dangerous and you can only trust yourself and a few friends. He warns that if he remains among the mercenaries, he will not live to be 15 years old, assuring his interlocutor of the seriousness of the situation. He says that he understands that his son has no predisposition to magic, and the old man hopes that his son will be able to live peacefully in the south, where there is no war. He begs for another to be admitted to the academy, asking for it with great sincerity. He silently looks up at his armored interlocutor standing next to him. The old man chuckled and said it was funny, and the other man looked down thoughtfully. Almark says something is not meant for him, while another man in armor listens with his head down. The sky in the evening with birds flying over the trees, silence and calm surround the scene. A crowd is bustling in the market, a woman is pouring liquid into a cauldron, and her hand is tapping on the surface. Almark listens thoughtfully as the old man and the knight explain that he is near a fire. He greeted his father joyfully and wished him a safe return, then with a beaming smile handed him a bowl. Almark cautiously pushes the child away, and the old man greets them, saying that he doesn't know him. He cries and asks not to be afraid, and the man in armor says that first you need to say hello and that it is impolite. A wise old man reassures a frightened boy, telling him that being cautious with strangers is a wise decision. A grown man shouts to Almark not to be afraid, and he listens to him with fear and tears. The old man admitted that he had seen many talented children, but his interlocutor's son had enormous potential. The man happily praised Almark, who sheepishly confirmed that it was true. A man with a beard is confident that he will succeed as a mercenary, while another wonders if he can become a good swordsman. He blinks in surprise as someone grips his head tightly, and another person firmly states that this will not happen. The old man explains that he will take the boy to the academy when he turns 9, and the interlocutor remains silent in response. At the border, someone thanks Mr. Reese for his help. Almark and the old man promise to meet in 4 years, holding each other's hands tightly. The warrior thanks the boy who asks him to be more careful on the roads, and he agrees. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly and then walks away towards the camp after several years. Almark, showing an interest in fencing, trains with his father's old sword while Reese tries to teach him how. He remained shy, but his gaze changed, becoming clear and firm as others trained in front of the camp. The memoirs tell how, at the age of 8, Almark killed a man for the first time, and the soldiers went off to fight, leaving the camp unprotected. He, wounded and lying on the floor, screams to run away from here, and other people in the room are surprised by what is happening. 2 mercenaries attacked him, and he cried out in pain, and the narrator noted that these non-humans decided to start a massacre. He says that there are no main forces and the prey is easy, and the other happily confirms and believes that they have entered successfully. He angrily demands who it is, while the other stares in amazement at the severed hand with the sword. He exclaimed in horror that this child was involved in the explosion or bloody event that occurred. Almark, returning to the camp after being wounded, heard from the women the story of what had happened. He says thoughtfully that he can now fight alongside them, and the other one happily confirms that it's great. Jeruz said that the child was only 8 years old and they would talk when he was 12, and the other man smiled and called Jeruz by name. He asked with bewilderment what his interlocutor was talking about, and then noted that if someone could kill 2 people here, then they could cope on the battlefield. He silently watches the shadow that appears behind the curtain, without saying a word. He returned and greeted his father, who asked about his wounds and told him to come closer. The interlocutor greets Almark and praises him for defeating those who attacked the camp, and then turns to another man named Reese. Almark's father asked him if he wanted to go out onto the battlefield when spring came, to which he responded with surprise. He listens in surprise and silence, and then confirms with the answer, yes. He agreed with the decision, and the other man watched him with a smile, crossing his arms. Almark, at the age of 9, welcomed spring by observing nature after winter. He accepted his first battle instead of the ceremony, killing 4 enemies together with his father, and Reese said that after the next battle he would leave. Almark shed blood in the northern lands, and he said that in the second battle they were defeated. By the time summer arrived, he had already participated in 5 major battles and was fighting in small skirmishes every day. He heard someone call Almark and gripped the hilt of his sword tightly, preparing for action. Almark, wounded and with a sword in his hand, confirms to his father that he has become a true warrior. He ordered another to go change clothes, pointing towards the tents against the sky. He taught his son everything he knew between battles, and at the same time the flight did not forget about the academy. Almark listens as the importance of philosophy and other aspects of life are explained to him while moves are made on the chessboard. He absorbed knowledge as quickly as he learned fencing, intently writing down the information in a book. In his spare time from battles and studies, Almark trained with a sword, and another boy said that Reese did not like it. He sums up the 9th year, and another man says that's enough for today, putting his hand on his head. He lies in bed after a harrowing flight, and another person sits next to him, thinking about what happened. He defiantly said that he would become stronger, and the other replied that he did not have time for that. He warns that they will soon go to the kingdom of Bastia, where pure hell awaits them. Almark listens silently as he is told that he won't be able to cope with this night. He convinces his interlocutor that he can become great, explaining the difference in income between mercenaries and magicians. Almark convinces another that becoming a knight is his destiny and warns him not to waste his potential. The interlocutor tells Almark that he won't be able to clear his way with a sword and advises him to use his head. He advises living consciously and not relying on others, reminding that in this world everyone is on their own. He clenched his fist in a show of determination and said he was not going to give up. He turns to his father, saying that he understood him. He agreed and praised his interlocutor for his intelligence. Almark comes out of the tent and tells Gabra to say goodbye to everyone, and she asks in surprise what he means. He promised to become a real warrior the next time they met, and she asked him not to forget her, after which the other thanked him and promised not to forget them. He says that he is a fighter of the Black Wolf Cavalry Corps and is proud of it, and the other wishes him to always remain one and take care of himself. Commander Jeruz warns that Gabra will be bored, and another man advises not to eat everything in sight, so as not to upset his stomach. He thanked them while everyone clapped him on the shoulder and wished him a safe journey. The boy calls out to Derek, who smiles as he notices the people around him. Almark and his friends share a joyful hug, and then he smiles as he interacts with 3 adults who look at him with warmth and concern. He asked if he had taken everything he needed, sitting on a hill with a sword on his back. He handed over the necklace, saying that it belonged to the interlocutor's mother, and offered to take it, explaining that anything can happen in the world. He asks to take care of the amulet, saying that it will protect the one who keeps it. He shouted hey and warned the other to be careful. He silently bids farewell to his father, saying goodbye, Dad, as he walks away into the distance under the trees. He tells how Almark had to endure the harsh winds of the north and cross the central lands of Nahahar to reach the Norsk Academy of Magic and move further south. He reflects on how traveling through the northern lands alone is an unimaginable challenge for a 9-year-old child, especially in winter. He reflects on hunger, cold and demons, and calls those around him scoundrels and deceivers. He remembers how they tried to kill him in the north, but his fencing skills and luck saved him, and sometimes he had to join a group of mercenaries. Almark thanks for the help, replies that he is from the north, and receives money from the owner of the establishment. The woman happily says that Grandma will give her some gifts for the road, and the 2 men are surprised that someone from the far north has come. He thanks for the gift, a little shyly and hugging a large bundle against the backdrop of the night sky. It's spring, Almark is 11 years old, and the man tells him to move things after work. Almark arrived on the island of Norsk and was relieved that it was finally all over. He politely asked her where the Norse Academy of Magic was, and she confirmed that it was an academy. He is surprised, and she explains that the academy occupies more than a third of the island and gives instructions on how not to get lost while walking along the road. Almark noticed a woman who waved to him and looked around in surprise. He asks in confusion, "Is that so?" and then tries to find the entrance, looking around carefully. Almark asks who is playing around there, and the other person apologizes and asks if there is anyone there. He introduced himself and said that he came from the north and wanted to see the director, to which the other one asked in surprise who this boy was. Almark angrily says that the director didn't report him, and another man rudely orders him to leave, calling him a scoundrel. He firmly stated that he would not go anywhere, because Jorg himself had approved his candidacy. Almark, noticing something, asks if he knows the director's name, observing another man in worn clothes. He hesitantly agrees and says that he will take his interlocutor to the director, noticing his exhausted appearance. He explains that in front of them is the main building and that the primary school is located here. He said he had never seen anything like it, turning to another man standing nearby in armor. He said he hoped that his interlocutor would also be able to study here. He explained that the principal's office is located in the main building and the primary school building. Almark looks down thoughtfully from the balcony, while two men with guns stand against the wall, watching what is happening. Someone slowly places their foot into the boot, then puts it on completely, after which another person steps into the shoe. They came to the door and he said that here they are. Almark says that the sword will have to be left behind, and he agrees, albeit reluctantly. He knocked on the door and announced that a child had arrived who wanted to enroll in the academy, after which he received permission to enter. He opens the door and apologizes once again. He said with surprise that it was teacher Jorg, sitting at the table with papers and a pen. Almark apologized, and the other two discussed how Jorg might be the embodiment of the spirit of wisdom, quoting the words of the wandering wizard. He introduced himself to the director, who remarked that he seemed to know his name. The old man thoughtfully pronounces Almark's name and talks about his rank and origin. He is shocked to hear the name Black Wolves and cannot believe his eyes, saying that this cannot be. Almark confirms that his father helped them a long time ago, and the old man, in surprise, calls him Risa's son, causing shock in the other man. Someone asks Almark to come over to examine him, while another orders Judo to leave them alone. He nodded and said that everything was fine, after which he turned away from Almark standing in front of him. He asks the boy why he is 2 years late, why he looks like that, and what happened to his father who didn't go with him. He panics and asks the teacher to wait. He asked permission to ask the question again, and the old man replied that he understood and agreed. He sighs heavily and says, if, covering his face with his hand. He says the war in the north is not over yet, and his father thinks this is just the beginning. He asks about the battle with the abyss, and the old man replies that the strength of the northerners will be needed in the coming battle, and calls it sad. He asks Almark if he can ask one more question, and he replies in surprise that he hasn't finished yet. He talks about the mercenary mages of Gerfen and says that if the interlocutor is from the north, then he has probably heard about them at least once. He confirmed that he had heard that they were famous in the north for their uniqueness, while the other only replied thoughtfully, The old man says that after the success of the magician Guldar, all the magicians of the south went north, but most of the students disappeared without a trace. He says that many from the north study magic for battle, but they will not allow the magic of the south to be abused, and mentions Gerfen's success. He asked what they wanted to say, and the old man explained that it was an entrance test, since for several years they had not allowed students from the north without reason. He asks thoughtfully what she plans to do after learning magic, expressing doubt in the answer to such a question. He remains silent, and another asks if he will return to the north to use the power like Gerfen. He said that he would also return to the north, and the old man began to tell about his journey with surprise. He reflects on the causes of wars in the north, noting the peaceful life in the central and southern countries. He looks thoughtfully at the sky, silently observing the stars. An old man welcomes Almark to the Norsk Academy of Magic, addressing him by name. Almark silently looks at the other one, who apologizes and tries to hold back his laughter after opening the door. He laughs and says that it is the first time he has seen the director so excited, and the other one listens to him silently. Judo introduced himself and offered to help prepare for tomorrow, noting that his interlocutor was very brave. He called him Almark, and he replied that it was nice to meet him, shaking his hand. He reminded him to take his sword, and he admitted that he almost forgot, and the sword turned out to be quite heavy. Almark is surprised at how easily the other one handles the sword, and the other one thanks him. He's filling out paperwork while another man is explaining something to the boy standing next to him behind the counter. Almark congratulates another on entering the academy and calls him a good boy as he opens the door. He notices that life has changed the other person greatly and says that something needs to be done about his appearance, because it carries death and strangeness within itself. Almark refused to give another way, explaining that he did not have one, and went to the well. He heard that everyone in the north was barbarian, but he objected that, apparently, this was not so. Almark says thoughtfully that it doesn't take much intelligence to kill. He noted with surprise that the cloak was quite good, and the other one anxiously tried to say something. He shyly refuses, but Almark insists, saying that it suits him and offers to keep it for himself. He listens thoughtfully as the other thanks him, all the while thinking about the eagle. Almark admitted that his interlocutor had a different, more noble aura, despite the fact that he was a mercenary. He says that it's still a bit of a walk to the hostel and asks if he's tired. He remembered that he had walked from the very north on foot, and the other reacted with surprise to his words. The image shows a forest with tall trees and shadows between them. He said that they came while they were walking along the road. Almark and another man are watching a large building and he expresses surprise. He thinks the only way to stop this is with about 150 elementary school students living in a 4-story building, and another notices that he's getting carried away again. Almark looked in surprise at his interlocutor, who asked if he would live there too. He suggested going to say hello to the commandant, noting that she might seem rude, but she was a good person, after which they knocked on the office door. Almark says that the door is always open and there is no need to knock, and the other agrees and invites him in. He reacts with surprise to the words of the old man, who looks at him intently, and he quietly asks, "Eh?" The man introduced Almark to Mrs. Maya as his new ward, and he greeted her politely. The man with spiky hair demands attention, and Almark, hearing him, responds with interest. He explains that they feed you twice a day and that lunch is in the school cafeteria, warning that until you finish elementary school, you will live alone. The man explains that all 150 students live in cramped rooms with small beds, and Almark listens to him. He received the keys to the room and was surprised that room 341 was free, although he was told that his room was 314 on the 3rd floor. Almark shows the key, and another character says that nothing else is needed. He ignores the question about what happened, and the other man invites him to move on, ending the conversation with words about Mrs. May. He tells her that she was mistaken for a rich man's son, and then suggests going, mentioning a nice coat. Almark agreed and wondered what she would think if he was without his coat as they walked down the hallway. He and his companion entered the room and he said that this was his room. The room is empty, a blanket is neatly laid out on the bed, and a barred window is visible behind the curtains. Almark says that he will live here alone, but at least it will be quiet. He remarked that the room was excellent, and another said that even a poor farmer's child had more things, and asked if his luggage included only a book. Almark thanks for the cloak and help, and the other man replies that this is enough. He said he would bring clothes later, but for now he needed to take off his rags, otherwise the bed would smell like fish. Almark reacted with surprise to the words of another who confirmed something with confidence. He explains that the students are returning to the dorm for dinner, and the other one agrees and says that he will bring a change of clothes later. He thanked him for everything, and the other promised that from tomorrow they would become friends, and left. Almark looks out the window at a group of people, hearing their laughter and conversations from the street. He looked out the window and suggested that they become friends, touching the glass with his hand. He remembers seeing her often as he headed south from Nahahara, and she and another guy were discussing a carefree walk home from school. Almark and his squad, weapons in hand, shout and run forward through the mountainous terrain, feeling the cold wind over the northern land. He is preparing to attack a huge enemy with a sword, whose leg is tied with ropes. During the battle, one of the warriors curses at his bonds, while the other breathes heavily, watching what is happening. He woke up suddenly in a sweat, clutching the blanket and looking around. Almark takes the sword with heaviness, then sits down by the bed, staring at the floor and touching his head. He reflects on a dream he had about his past. He puts the sword into its sheath, the sound of metal rubbing is heard. He remembers how his father gave him a pendant, which he first hung around his neck and then hid in the sheath of his sword. He reflects that the pendant kept next to the sword protects his life and that losing the sword will be the end. He remembers that his father's sword and his mother's pendant always protected him, saying about his dad and mom. Almark sat on the bed with a large sword and said that he had arrived. He asks with a smile if he got enough sleep, and the other one worriedly wonders why he is hugging the sword. Almark brought breakfast and said that from that evening he would be eating with everyone in the dining room, and the other answered him good morning. He clasped his hands and said that he wanted to wash and tidy himself up since today was his first day, and then thanked him for the food. Almark suggests thinking and says that there are restrooms in the dormitory, and the other asks where he can do this. He goes up the stairs, looks into the room and thinks it is a dining room where the noise of conversations can be heard. He asked if the well was occupied and she told him good morning. He asked if she knew about him, and she replied that she had arrived at the academy yesterday and asked if they had met before. She says that no one has transferred here in 10 years, and he replies that everyone just talks about it. He was surprised and said that he didn't expect this, and the other noted that everyone was excited and now he is a celebrity. Almark introduced himself and asked the name of the woman sitting on the wall next to the basket. He asks why she isn't having breakfast with the others, and she gives her first and last name, Layla Coogan. Almark says he likes to sleep, and they discuss whether Mistress Maya scolds him for this, while one of the girls insists that everyone finish eating. He says that's enough, and she advises asking questions to someone else, after which she leaves. Almark greets his returning interlocutor and notes that he has an excellent sword, although he himself does not really understand them. He asks in surprise about the legendary master, and another man tells him that his father's sword, which has saved him many times and is reliable. Almark asked who the girl was, and he admitted that he had met her and looked puzzled, wondering what had happened downstairs. He says that Layla called him a transvestite and was a bit rude, to which he reacts calmly and with a smile. Almark said that the first girl he met was Layla, and wished that he would meet Wendy, to which he responded with a question. He urges another to change into his uniform and go to school, and the other one agrees with surprise. He remembers how his father called mages vile, cowardly creatures when he lived in the north. He admitted that he was surprised, and the other said that someday he would learn magic. Almark said he couldn't imagine any other life than being a mercenary and began training with a sword on his own to make his father change his mind. He said that he had given up on becoming a future mercenary because his father was adamant, and this conversation had deeply touched him. Almark reflects on his fear of magic and his desire to fulfill his father's will, not wanting to be seen as a coward. He dreams of being spoken of as a worthy son of the brilliant race, and for his father's valor to become known in the world of magic. Another man called to Almark to come over, and he agreed, walking towards him along the wooden path. Almark thanks him, and the other man says that the robe suits him and that he will become a magician. He admitted that he was a little nervous standing among the trees in the forest. He listens with interest as Almark says that this is his first school and he is sure that she will like it. He notices that his interlocutor is lost in thought and asks what happened, but he denies it and asks why he decided that way. Almark admitted that his face was giving him away, and his interlocutor honestly said that he didn't want to say it, but was forced to. He objected in surprise that his father was not a soldier, but a mercenary, in response to the words of another about the rarity of war in these parts and that his father was a soldier. He apologizes for being rude, and Almark remains silent, reflecting on the fact that most people, especially mercenaries, think that way. He says there are mercenaries in Nakahara too, and he admits that people here don't know the real situation in the north, including himself. He silently agrees, and the other explains that everyone thinks that people in the north are constantly killing each other. He was surprised by the stories about the war, and the woman explained to the man that it did not concern them, mentioning travels to southern countries. He expressed joy that it did not affect them, and another said that only stupid savages start wars. He admitted that he was the son of the mercenary Shadowfang Reyes, addressing the man in the cloak. He thinks doubtfully about the difficult task the director gave him, standing in front of him in the office. He reflects that if Almark tells everyone the truth about his origins, he will be despised, and wonders how to keep him silent. Two warriors discuss the special treatment of northerners and their origins, noting that this is nothing, despite the rumors about the Norse Academy. He warns another that if he tells about this, he will be bullied, but he reacts to the words with restraint. He turns to Almark, advising him not to rely on him and to constantly ask himself what to do next. He realized that emotions were getting in the way of achieving his goals and asked his father for forgiveness. He promised to remain silent, and Almark confirmed that he understood his intention. He said that there was not much left to go and suggested that they go on, and the other agreed with some hesitation. Before entering the school, she explains that it is FIA's class teacher, and he reacts quietly. The boy asked the man if he was Almark, to which he replied that he was glad to meet him, and the other man admired the girl's beauty. A man offers to take care of a boy to a woman, and she thanks him for his work, refusing to accept the gratitude. Almark thanks him, and the other man says that if he needs anything, he can come to him. He offered to tell her about elementary school, and she replied that the classroom was on the 3rd floor and invited her to go with him. She explains that elementary school teaches the basics of science and magic, with 3 classes of 15 students each teaching basic magical techniques and spells. He heard that he had a talent for magic, and she assured him not to worry, promising to help him become an excellent magician. He sighs with relief, and she says that someone was always left without a partner, but his appearance will fix that, mentioning his 15 students. 2 people entered the room and he said that they had come. He invited her in, and the woman explained that this was a classroom. The teacher greets the class and introduces a transfer student, who asks in surprise if this is really the class. The teacher introduced a new student named Almark and expressed hope that they would get along. The teacher announced that he would be the 16th student in the class, and someone remarked that he was very cool. He recalls joining a circus troupe, standing in public with a sword, while Layla looks away thoughtfully. He is surprised to think that this is his place, and 2 people sitting at the table notice his reaction. Almark suggested starting the lesson, and the other agreed, saying it was time to clarify. He asked why the other was 2 hours late and inquired about his father's occupation, calling him the royal commoner Arnidi. He asked why Almark wasn't answering, and he explained that he couldn't speak because he had no tongue. He talks about the kingdom of Arnet and its connection with the kingdom of the north, offering to stay with him. He was surprised and asked how far it was. He says it's very far away, and then someone exclaims ah. He says the word swords thoughtfully, and she answers hesitantly, Almark asks in surprise why swords are not needed, and another man explains that these are not swords, but staffs. He said that one came, and the other confirmed it with the word yeah. He said that from such a distance it could be better, and the other was silent, listening. He says that they have it, and the other one replies that it happens to everyone. Mike's introduced himself to Almark and said that he was the son of Jezerik, and Almark replied that Mike's was the son of a blacksmith and lived near the kingdom of Garai. In the image, he explains that they are roommates, so he is fine, and mentions partial control. Almark says he'll have to put up with it as long as someone else is listening to him. He says that she is from the Bar-Erb family, one of the most influential houses in the kingdom of Garai. He asks how long the roses will be blooming and adds that there is still something to be done about the upcoming event. Sorry, the image is too blurry to describe the scene. Please provide a clearer image. In the image, he is asking about Czech script to another person. He asked with a grin whether his interlocutor had mastered at least one spell, to which he answered in the negative. Almark asks in surprise who it is, looking at the man in blood and bandages. He talks about guys who boast about their status and mentions that he is from the kingdom of Garai. He asked if there were martial arts in the class and was told that there were. He asks if there could be a case of such a close marriage and who would be the first then. Sorry, the image is too distorted to describe the scene. Please provide a clearer image. He said that everything was ready and suggested to begin, and the other noted that he would begin without using the staff and asked to turn on the light. Almark said he couldn't believe what had happened, looking at the empty board with the words winner written on it. He noticed something with surprise, after which the other one looked at him silently and then looked down. She explains that he was often used as an old maid she met on her journey, and that the boys have more stable light perception. He said thoughtfully that it was difficult, but then added that it was still worth trying. In the picture, Almark with gray hair and eyes says that this is exactly what he called. He asks in surprise why they are calling him, and the other person replies that it is because of his name. Almark agreed to go to him after class to get extra lessons, despite his attempt to stop him. He said he had done a good job and the other agreed that everything was clean. Almark says the word bidamo with a thoughtful expression on his face. He explained that these were training staffs. Almark and the other man discuss how they can't afford to lose this fight, despite the fatigue and pain. He explains that it all depends on the teacher's mood, and she asks what to do with them next. The image shows a man with gray hair and eyes talking about carving while standing next to another man. Almark exclaims in surprise that he cannot believe what is happening, and another person asks him not to panic and explains the situation. He asks in surprise what is going on, and the other man replies that it is none of his business. He asked if the other person had finished and offered to take some more. Almark notices that someone doesn't look like him and expresses doubt out loud. He looks in surprise at the other person who says he can't stand the situation anymore. He asked what was going on, and Almark noticed it and called him. He said he didn't agree, but his interlocutor reminded him that he had a stick and a stone. He asks why she doesn't break it, expressing doubt in her decision. He explains that you first need to close your eyes and take a deep breath, and then asks the other person to watch. He is surprised that there is not a drop of magic in the other's body and asks how this is possible. He warns the other that it is better to leave this place. He explains that magic is like dew and asks to imagine it that way. Almark hit the surface sharply, making a loud BAM sound. He listens in amazement as another character talks about the strange events happening in their world. He says he doesn't know why she looks like something, and she says it's her blood type. He says he's never seen anyone who couldn't break off at least a piece. Almark listens in surprise as the other man says he can't understand why he did what he did. He noticed that they were hostile towards him, and the other replied that he was an eyesore. He explains that the differences in their statuses caused the situation and confirms that this is the case. He says that due to a 2-year delay he did not receive a category, and asks if the interlocutor wants to become a magician. He asked his interlocutor if he had any family circumstances, and he replied that he was Sifi from the Torque clan. Almark says it was hard for them to break up and wonders why thoughts about the past are so obsessive. He says well, with his mouth open, expressing hesitation or anticipation. In the image, Almark says it was difficult, and another character replies that he will quickly run away. He says that if the stone doesn't crack, then the other one is wasting his time, and the other one replies that he thought it would crack. Almark said that he had never seen such skillful magic before, and his interlocutor replied that it was excellent and he would try. In the image, he says that they are both doing something while addressing the other person. He asked if it was really so, and the other one replied that it was exactly so. He said that we could take his bread, and the other one replied that he understood. He explains that magicians are called those who wield invisible power and warns that what is visible is only a superficial look at the magician. He told Almark that he was an excellent listener and added that a staff or robe was not needed to learn magic. He asks Taganti for help, explaining that he cannot use magic. He exclaimed that it was very dark here and the space was huge. Almark says that the girl should go home, pointing to the door. He asks if something is true and the other one agrees by answering okay. He said he would see him tomorrow and said goodbye as he left the room, where the other man remains sitting in thought. Almark says goodbye, saying that they will see each other tomorrow, and the other person urges them to leave quickly. He doubts his rightness, remembering the words of teacher Loomis, and now believes that she is in the garden. In the image, Almark says that time is up and warns of the beginning of something important. He reads the note with the list, trying to understand its meaning. Almark explains that in Morgan they also fight wind magic and talks about the situation with their talent. He listens attentively as another man talks about his experiences and fears. He explains what murder is. He is deliberately saving me. Sorry, the image is too cropped and blurry to describe the scene or identify the characters. Please provide a clearer image. In the image, Almark, with gray hair and eyes, looks at the bird and says that he can't do something. He asks teacher Loomis to help him by asking him. He asked in surprise what it was, and the other explained that it was the first magician he had ever had. Almark asks in surprise why someone didn't come, expressing bewilderment. He listens attentively as another person explains a situation by pointing to something in front of them. Someone called out loudly to Almark and asked what he was doing. Almark watches someone shoot a bow and notices that the arrow hits the target perfectly. He asks how long he was unconscious, noting that he feels empty. Almark felt the flames begin to suck out his magical power, and another person advised him not to get out of bed. Master Loomis said that he had released most of his magical power and should lie down for a little while longer, but he noted that he had not even felt his presence. He asked the teacher what happened to him, and he replied that it was not light magic, although he tried to use it. He said he had only trained in meditation but didn't know if he could visualize. Almark says he can't understand why someone doesn't want to talk to him and asks for an explanation. He explains that he was meditating incorrectly and connecting magic with the wrong thing, which greatly depletes magical power and can lead to death in a child. Almark explains that he has already said that the interlocutor is wise beyond his years and quickly understands and applies magic. He explains that he hears and sees something different. He admitted that he understood, and Almark explained that he had interpreted magic in his own way and made a terrible mistake. He remembers the teacher's words and thinks that he will faint very soon. He said he understood and added that there would be no forces. In the image, Almark advises having a drink and resting a bit before the next stage. He apologized for the inconvenience caused and promised to think about how to return to the dorm. Almark points to something and says that the interlocutor no longer has magical powers. He says that the body must be strong, confirming the teacher's words about the importance of time. Almark woke up, they carefully served him a hot drink, and he thanked them, deciding to follow the teacher's advice. He feels that his magic is gradually being restored, and the other advises to wait until the dizziness ends and return to the dorm. The woman tells Almark that he is under house arrest and should rest in his room, but she has other things to do. The image shows a man in a cloak standing against a wall, leaning on a stick, and looking intently ahead. He's worried that he's already been discharged, and another asks if he's okay and thanks him for not having any injuries. Almark says that at first he had difficulty controlling magic and almost burned out, while another character expresses joy along with the rest of the guys. He laughs and tells a story, and the other person listens attentively and reacts to his words. They discuss that Almark's flame is the best in class and no one has ever created such a large flame. Almark explains that everyone makes mistakes and asks not to be angry with him, assuring that everything is settled now and there is no need to worry. He thanks her for her help, and she promises to contact him if she needs their support. He asked why she didn't want to go, and she replied that she was afraid, but he insisted that they could manage together. Almark reassures that there are many shops, and he and Morgan were also planning to go there. She says she wants to show him a good bakery, and he replies that she just wants to go to a candy store. He said, see you later, and walked away, leaving the others standing together. He asks what the other person did, who replies that he doesn't want to betray their feelings. He told Layla that she had powers she couldn't control, like a monkey, and apologized for scaring her. Almark said that today's lesson was a disaster because of the person he was talking to and asked not to interrupt his lessons anymore, explaining that he didn't have time to chat. He asked Wendy why she didn't leave her room all day and she confirmed it. He suggested doing homework in his interlocutor's room, causing him to react in surprise. Almark asked if she was sure that today was a day off and allowed her to go through, and she agreed to go study in the common room with books. He admitted that at first he didn't understand why Wendy was so good, but she explained everything to him and was the best student in the class. After lunch he asked her why she was so nice to him and she asked if he had eaten yet. Almark says that everything is fine and he is doing this of his own free will, and the interlocutor notes that he is spending his free time on him. He said that from the first day they noticed that Torque didn't get along with him right away. Almark explains that they spoke to her to protect her and remarks that she is an eyesore. He reflects on how he has always defended himself and is surprised that this girl defended him. He thanks Wendy and reflects on how he appears weak and in need of protection in the eyes of children. He assures her that he can stand up for himself and thanks her for her help, and she tries to explain that she didn't mean to call him unreliable. He asked why she didn't like Torque, and she replied that she wanted to ask another question. Almark thoughtfully answers a question about the differences between those who have surnames and those who don't, and another is surprised by his words. He explained that about half of the children in the class were from noble families, including 4 aristocrats, and the rest were commoners like himself. He said it didn't matter whether he was a commoner or an aristocrat, addressing a group of listeners. Almark argues that the academy should only be for aristocrats, while another person agrees that teachers do not discriminate against students. He explains that the rootless are very afraid of the nobles, especially Torque. He admitted that he didn't like his inflated pride and began to explain the situation. Almark reflects on magical power and says that status means nothing in front of magic, noting this as a strange phenomenon. He sits with his back to the scales and reflects on how its magical power is in perfect balance. She states that she wants to change their class, explaining her motives. Almark listens as she admits that she always wanted this, but in the end she couldn't do anything about it. He remembers how on his first day at the academy he seemed useless, but someone thought he was a wonderful boy. He begins to speak with difficulty, and then confirms that he definitely remembers something, recalling how their eyes met. She expressed joy, saying that she was glad to be with his loved ones. He stands against the wall with gray hair and eyes, watching a man who says he can't take it anymore. He suggested that this boy could change the situation in the class, and she admitted that she was. She says she did everything to make him feel comfortable as quickly as possible. He sits and apologizes for the nonsense he said. Almark reflects on the fact that although he speaks badly of Torque, he also has good qualities, and asks to understand this. He silently watches the man with the staff, who leans thoughtfully on his hand. He reads the book and remembers that Wendy still tried to take care of him by calling her a girl. He fights his opponent by striking with his sword and then retreats, preparing for the next move. Almark responds to his father, confirming the start of the battle. He confirmed that a man should not stand aside when a woman cries, calling it an important part. He advises to first provoke the other person by clenching your fist. Almark sits at the table opposite another person and talks about his plans. He asks not to remind him of the old times so often, and she is surprised and asks what is wrong with him. Almark noticed something strange and expressed surprise. He sits in a chair at a table with books and papers, thoughtfully placing his hand on the surface. In the image, Almark is standing near a wall with columns, carefully examining the space around him. He asked in surprise what was going on, and he replied that it was none of his business and suggested leaving. He remains silent, and the other one irritably calls him a freak. He speaks with a blindfold on, and she replies, "Oh, watching what's happening." A friend invited Almark to go to class, and he, closing the book, replied that he understood. Almark and another man are standing in the martial arts arena and he says it's time to go. The three are discussing the annual martial arts tournament that King Garai is attending, and one of them is surprised that they have to fight in front of the king. The man rudely demands silence until the professor arrives, while others discuss participation in the tournament and its significance. He notices everyone gathered and explains that Torque is angrier today due to pride in his fighting skills and a strong blow that is better not to take. He enthusiastically announces the beginning, and the girl with the sword is surprised by their subtlety and wonders why this is so. He reflects that in battle he is the only one who thinks this way, but in reality it is just a school without wars for about 100 years. Almark invites Wallace to continue the fight, despite the fact that they hit each other hard and he loses again. He deflects his opponent's attack by spinning his sword to parry her blow. She marvels at how well Wendy and Layla move, explaining that both are aristocrats who have been trained in fencing since childhood. He said they didn't want weaklings in the class and ordered the new guy to stand up, while another added that he looked like a redneck. Almark firmly declares that he has achieved a lot and is not going anywhere, and the other man warns him that he will have to learn to defend himself in order to stay at the academy. He says he has no reason to lie, and the other man expresses doubt and weariness with this story. He doubts that a magician from a southern country can know about the inhabitants of the north, and another calls the northerners impudent and asks if he is joking. He asks Varvara what he thinks and says that his animal instincts awaken when he looks at them. He offers to become a partner, and Almark listens to him silently. He instructs a student to tense his legs and take a firmer step, while another asks if he has received the teacher's permission. Almark asks to borrow some ammunition, explaining that he doesn't have any, and another man agrees to help. He says that this is no place for barbarians and suggests returning to his country, asking why someone who cannot use light magic is here. He asked if his interlocutor had finished his tirade, and he quietly said this word. He curses and attacks with a sword, and the other is surprised that he sounds like a shoemaker's son and asks if he is an aristocrat. He ponders the decision to fight Torque and waits for the right moment to avoid provoking him further. Almark explains that the enemy does not want to stop, while another warns not to get arrogant because of one repelled attack. She noted that the girl looked both calm and bored, and she promised to repay for her kindness and reassured Wendy that everything was fine. He suggested with a smile that his interlocutor might be a savage mercenary from the north, and thanked him for the warning about the threat of murder. Almark angrily says that the enemy is not so strong, and he responds with fear. He confidently dodges Torque's attacks, and those watching discuss his skill and are surprised that he seems to miss on purpose. He watches his opponent intently, and the other remarks that he seems to see all of Torque's movements. He stands in a round room and accuses someone of cowardice and doubt. Almark smiles and says got it as he hits his opponent in the chest with his sword, who screams in rage. He shouts that the hit doesn't count, another says that he lost, and the third rejoices at Almark's victory. Almark refuses to accept the condition, but agrees to a second fight with Torque on one condition. He offers a bet with the condition of leaving the academy in case of defeat, and the other man notes that he does not intend to interfere for now. He, with gray hair and black pupil eyes, declares that he will no longer bully anyone based on their nobility, and others react with surprise. Almark mocks his opponent, calling him a coward and asking if he is scared. He confirmed the agreement and suggested to begin, holding the rapier in a fighting stance. He menacingly promised to kill his opponent during their rapier duel. Almark, despite his rage, acts cautiously, watching the group of people from a distance. They discuss why Torque isn't attacking, and one of them, probably him, hears his name in the conversation. He curses and says that he has already passed his opponent 3 times, continuing the fight with foils. He exclaimed in surprise, and Almark noticed that he did not see a gap in the enemy's defense and expressed irritation. Someone took a step on the ground, making a rustling sound. He quickly attacks with his sword, sending a powerful blow that sends the enemy flying back. He stands up and moves closer, and the other one lets out a subdued sigh, ugh. Almark grabbed the other man by the collar and declared that he had won against Torque. He sternly says that from this moment on the interlocutor has no right to tease anyone, regardless of the nobility of the family. Almark makes a noise with effort when another man grabs him by the collar in a tense situation. He stands with his back to them, and the others are discussing something with serious and worried expressions on their faces. Almark laughs while sitting on the ground next to another man, with a rapier lying in the foreground. He holds the other man tightly as he tries to get up and says something serious. Almark looks closely at the other man, who extends his hand as if to pass or grab something. He stands with his back to the group of people running towards him, one of them shouting Torque. Almark and his friends discuss his strength and martial arts, admiring how Torque flew after their training session. She thanks Almark, who listens attentively and supports her while she shyly wipes away tears. Almark explains that he is only returning a debt, and she reacts to his words with surprise. He hopes that this is enough, and she says that she wants to repay all his kindness. Almark suggests they move on while the others discuss the situation, and the two watch them with serious expressions. He looks forward silently, without saying a word. Almark demands an oath in the name of the Shurfei family that no one will oppress him again, and receives a promise in return. He warns against turning classes into duels, inquires about Torque's condition, and offers to discuss martial arts. Almark explains that martial arts are effective ways to kill a person, and there is nothing wrong with training, because without it, they simply cannot be imagined. He says he will kill his interlocutor, who replies that there is nothing wrong with the determination to win, but fighting and hatred are not synonymous. He explains that in martial arts you have to do everything to defeat your opponent, but at the same time you have to respect him. He explains to Torque that the main reason for studying martial arts in peacetime is respect for the opponent. He advises his interlocutor to think about it, otherwise he will always have only superficial skills, to which he agrees with a grunt. The man tells Almark that he tricked Torque by challenging a weaker opponent to a fight, to which Almark confirms this with one word. He accuses his interlocutor of using dirty tricks, and the latter admits that he lured the enemy into a trap to force him to comply with the conditions. Almark says that there is no place for commoners in the academy, acknowledges the courage of his interlocutor and advises him to think about it, to which he agrees. He says with a grin that he didn't like that they chose his class for the showdown. Almark is assigned to be the cleaning duty officer in the martial arts classroom for a year, while another man says that disputes should be resolved with the homeroom teacher. He reproaches another for walking slowly, the other asks him to go faster, and then the boy happily carries the box while the girl washes the dishes. He watches as two people argue over who is slower, while others laugh and chat nearby. Teacher Bosun tells Almark that he should go to the principal after school, adding that there would be no punishment if they worked together. The old man invites Almark to come in, and he just walked in, making a sound of surprise. He asked her if she liked the academy and learned that every day brought something new, and the other was glad to hear that she had a lot of work. Almark told the director about the classes, studies and events, after which they briefly discussed it and the director expressed his thoughts. The director listened attentively without interrupting, occasionally nodding and giggling in response to what was said. Almark says that teacher Loomis and Dr. Celia helped him activate the dragon flame, and the old man is glad that he recovered quickly from the incident. He thanks Wendy, Morgan and the others for their help over the last 10 days, admitting that he couldn't have done it without them. A man with a beard explains that studying at a magic academy is time spent learning magic and spending time with friends, and that feeling should never be forgotten. Almark asks if he has enough money, and his interlocutor advises him not to be too strict and explains the importance of the components for becoming a wizard. It is said that the academy provides students with free housing, food and clothing, and some receive money from wealthy parents for daily needs and luxuries. Almark asked what they were doing there, and one of them replied that the director had called him to his office and that he was going to go home. He explains that he thought they wanted to punish him for his behavior, and another says that someone didn't return for a long time after leaving. Almark explained that he was not going to be punished and noted that 10 days had passed since he entered the academy, and others had expressed concern about him. Morgan teases Almark, saying that he is over-nervous, and the third laughs and reminds that the director called Almark. Almark thanks the Northerners for their care, recalling that their kindness saved him, despite the fact that in the North it is rarely found and is often equated with weakness. He silently holds the book, and she sits with her back to him, and the next day there is silence between them. Almark says that Torque remained arrogant, and another character is sure that Torque's attitude will become completely different, and Morgan was very happy on the way home. He reflects on Torque's pride in keeping his promise and notes that they have not heard any more derogatory words since then. Almark notices that Wallace is, as always, kind to everyone except him, and the atmosphere in the classroom has not changed. She thanks Almark for lighting a fire in their hearts and giving them all the courage to act more lively. Almark recalls Nelson recently responding to Torque, and the others discuss Torque starting to communicate with others, and one of them asks Torque to shut up. He and Wendy greet each other in the morning. He notices she's late, and she jokes that it's rare for him. Almark is worried about the shadow that always follows him, and another man is surprised and asks what happened to Morgan. He says in fear that it was a demon, and the other one laughs and denies it, reminding him about the shadow, trying to calm him down. Almark asks if he's tired of fairy tales, and the other insists that they're not just fairy tales and asks to tell him more. He agrees to listen, but the other warns him not to take it seriously. He recounts how he felt movement behind a tree, thought it was a rabbit, and ran to school, running late after an accidental nap that morning. Almark doubts the monster he saw, while another man claims he only saw the shadow for a moment and asks if he really didn't see anything. One of them denies the existence of monsters in the forest near the academy, and the other is surprised that the forest is full of monsters. He thinks that being careful is not a bad thing, while the other admits that Morgan was afraid of the shadows and invented his fears. Almark remains thoughtfully silent, and she asks if he still cares, after which he says that he is glad to make it to class on time. He admitted that he was nervous about the many demons in the north, and she addressed him by the name Wendy. He listens silently, and she says she'd like to hear more stories like this, after which he agrees that it's not strange. Almark asks for forgiveness and says that there is nothing more to tell, watching the dead and wounded around. She explains that Professor Dimitri is late, and the other thanks her for her help. Almark is loudly excited about his first lesson, and the teacher asks everyone to listen and do their own homework. After school, he wearily says that the extra classes were tiring, misses the snow, and notes that summer in the south is very hot, He says that she was the most fearful girl in the class and is afraid of the dark, and she goes into the forest late at night, causing him surprise. He explained that permission was required to enter the forest after dark, but he couldn't help, while another noted that everyone was eating lunch in the dining room at that time. Almark warns Lilith that it is dangerous to walk alone at night, and she replies that she was just passing by and is not afraid of being late for dinner. He asks why she is going to the forest so late, and she awkwardly tries to explain the matter. He was surprised to hear that she had lost the handkerchief her parents had given her and apologized for saying it out loud. Almark asks if he is afraid, and she replies that he is not, and they discuss whether it is worth looking for something at night or better in the morning because of the danger in the forest. He listens to Lilith complaining that she can't sleep without a handkerchief and promises to help her find it, assuring her that he wasn't laughing at her. Almark says that Lilith initially couldn't get used to her classmates and cried every night, holding a handkerchief given to her by her parents when she entered the academy. He warned her not to laugh while she remembered her parents and got used to sleeping with a scarf, which had become a necessity for her. Almark explains that every person has something important and apologizes for the advice to put off the matter until tomorrow, thanking for the story. He apologizes for being rude, and she asks for forgiveness and agrees to look for the scarf together, assuring that they will find it. He asks Lilith about the color of the scarf, and she replies that it is white, and he decides to focus on the search, thinking about magic and the lantern. Almark and she discuss that he must be here, and she shows the place where she collected black clover and wildflowers. He suggested that we split up to search, but he got confused and replied, He decided to go in that direction, and she asked him not to leave her alone and begged him to wait. Almark admits that he might have missed something and suggests that the other one watch as he approaches the bushes. He calms the frightened girl by explaining that the fallen nuts are just lying in the bushes, and then he falls to the ground, exclaiming in surprise. He reassures her that the unknown is scary, but knowing what's happening makes it less scary. He told Lilith that it was dangerous to be afraid unnecessarily and that it was better to face fear. He offers to continue, asking if she is too scared, to which she responds hesitantly. He asked her in surprise if she had found anything, and she happily showed him the item she had found, confirming this. He is glad that she found Almark, and he is surprised that he could not find him, remembering that she sleeps with him in her arms every night. She admitted that she was glad to go with him, and he thanked her, calling her by name Almark. He modestly replied that he didn't need any thanks, and she admitted that their bravery had helped them find the scarf. Almark says that she was the one who decided to find him, and he was just helping. They are walking through the forest and he asks what is that sound they hear around them. Almark says that the sound they hear is known only in the north and suggests leaving, as the time of demons has come. He reassures Lilith that everything will be fine and encourages her to run. He admitted that he was not confident in Ilitha's protection, but was afraid to leave the forest, and added that he was also scared. She suggests they get some rest and go home. He asks how she is and says that it seems they are safe. Almark raised his hands and asked who was in front, and the other replied that there was someone there. He heard a familiar voice and called Lilith and Almark to come with him, confirming that it was indeed them. Almark asked if they had decided to have some privacy, and she explained that she had simply forgotten something and had accidentally ended up with Lilith due to her prolonged studies. He jokes about scary monsters and time, and another asks Lilith if she's serious about it. She thanks Almark for the day they spent together, and he returns the lamp and asks her not to talk about the scarf. Almark says that even Torque helped look for Lilith, and he and his interlocutor are surprised by this. The group discusses someone's absence, deciding to wait for them, while he reflects on class cohesion and mutual assistance between comrades. Almark says goodbye to the company, hoping that they will be able to communicate tomorrow. He reported that he had already found Lilith, and in response he heard someone calling Wallace from afar. Almark asks why he doesn't answer, and the other thanks him for his help in finding. He says with a smile that the forest cried today, and the other man reacts to his words with surprise. Almark tells how he once had to walk for 2 days without food and go hungry on the road, knowing that he would not make it in time for dinner. He thinks he's losing concentration and reflecting on how quickly the human body gets used to good things, while the other dreams of sweets. Almark explained that he had bought a lot of food and would not be able to eat it alone, and she said that she had heard about his late return with Lilith and asked for help. He explains that sweets make him sleepy, so he'll only eat 3, and starts eating one of them. She thanked him for dinner, and he turned to Lilith, wishing her good evening. Almark says the stars are delicious, but he doesn't think he'll need sweets anytime soon. The father explained that the sound of the death flute is a sign of the approach of a strange monster from the depths of the forest, which can be heard at night at a certain noise level. The wandering magician explained that the reason for the attacks on people is unknown, and that it is darkness that has taken the form of sound. He talks about a strong thirst for blood and the danger of a monster that kills mercenaries and disappears by morning. Almark says that even now the disgusting sound the creatures make sends shivers down his spine, and they embody a person's fear of the dark. He remembers that he couldn't protect Lilith unarmed, and reflects on the sounds of monsters he hadn't heard south of Shinbara. Almark decided to return to fencing training and realized that he now needed to do more than just meditation. He muses out loud that he hasn't seen any monsters and isn't sure there's any danger. He thoughtfully asks Almark what he should tell everyone, and the other one asks if he is also going to school. Almark greets Eldo and Sicily, then replies that he hasn't learned how to use magic yet. He is surprised that a third-grade student cannot cast a single spell, and another boy remembers that he knows them from meditation classes. He said that because of his first year of study, his classmates did not communicate at first, but then they accepted him, and Almark supported him, encouraging him to continue studying fog magic. He gets advice not to give up and work harder, while another says Celia has lost a bit of steam and plans to train in the woods after school. Almark greets Torque, who replies with a smile that he was forced to look after the kids, causing sympathy in the third interlocutor. He overhears a conversation where he is called a poor man who cannot do magic and is asked to teach him magic, to which he replies that this is not true and understands the situation. They are sitting on the ground. One asks if Almark is being laughed at in class, and he replies that it is not so. He says that Almark ended up in a class with bullies and he is unlucky, and the other one promises to be a good friend to him and help him if necessary. He remembers a strange shadow on the road to school, and his interlocutor asks what happened. One guy talks about seeing a shadow at the entrance to the forest, while another guy remembers how he almost missed class. He convinces Morgan that his eyes can't be mistaken, and there was clearly something there, since the bushes themselves don't shake without a reason. He asks what it was, and Almark reminds him that he saw a shadow out of the corner of his eye during their last conversation. He asked how big the shadow was, and he replied that it was a little bigger than him, proving that the height of a shadow can be remembered. He replied in surprise that nothing of the sort had happened, despite the fact that he had not mentioned Morgan before. He says he saw a shadow with long claws, but his interlocutor doubts him and asks if he saw anything else. Almark thanks him for his trust and offers to tell the teacher, but the interlocutor believes that it would have been enough to just listen. He asked what she and Morgan had been whispering about, and she replied that he was too insecure, and he agreed that it wasn't particularly important. She said he was very kind but couldn't stand his ground. Almark noticed the running people and asked who it was, and then decided that the collection of herbs for the lessons was finished and it was time to return. He calls out to Almark in tears, and he, noticing him, asks what happened. He asks what happened to Eldo, while the other one calms down Cecilia, who is worried and repeating Eldo's name. He asks if the monster looked like a man or a dog and asks her to tell him at least something, and she replies that she was afraid and did not look. He asks Cecilia, who is crying, to tell him what she saw and reminds him that she is a mage, promising to save Eldo. He asked if the other one would go alone and asked to call the teacher for help, remembering a creature with brown fur and horns of medium height. He laughs and says he makes a great nanny, and someone yells Torque, attracting the attention of the group in the forest. He firmly declared that he would go into the forest first, and the other demanded that the teacher be called and looked after Cecilia, not understanding what he was talking about. Almark says that he is going to return Eldo, and the interlocutor warns about the kidnapping of a first year and asks why he would go into the forest alone, but he replies that he cannot explain. He asks Torque to take care of her while 3 people watch from afar in the forest. Torque urgently reports that they need to go with the first year and call the teacher, and someone is surprised by the idea of killing the monster. He muses out loud that the other's magic level is still low and he knows nothing about the forests. Almark decided that it was better to hold a branch in his hand than to remain completely without a weapon, and broke it. He asks why he is here, and the other explains that he sent Gullen and the others in the other direction, then calls out to Torque, who is running too fast, and tries to catch up with him. He asked if Almark thought he was scared, then warned him that if the first years encountered a monster, it would be worse, and reproached him for his ignorance of magic and the forest path. He explains to Torque that pride is good, but it won't protect his life, and is surprised how he took it. He says that she cannot understand the feelings of a knight, but she agrees to go together, recognizing his pride in himself and his title. Almark warns that training takes place in the clearing and that one must protect oneself, while the other counters that he should have said that. He asked if his interlocutor knew where he was going, against the backdrop of a destroyed wall. Almark says that Cecilia actually saw it and was a brave child, and the other man notices that it is Eldo's bag. He and the other man debate the veracity of Morgan's words, finding traces of a creature with claws and doubting the seriousness of his fantasies. He examines the claw and says that it is definitely Jaranan, the evil demon from the forest, and the other explains that the claws and horns are used to identify the creature that attacked ELD. Two people discuss a dangerous one-eyed creature with a horn that can attack and eat a person, and express hope for salvation. Almark explains that the creature takes its prey to the nest and kills it, meaning Eldo is still alive, and the other asks what he means. He calls to come closer, offering to sort everything out before dark, and the other remarks that he understands monsters too well. He explains that he colored the monster's scent to make it easier to track and that it will now be easier to find the target, after which the other agrees to go. He greets Dag, who inquires about the child's fate, and another man explains that it is not about the injury. He said that since they entered school, no monsters had appeared in the forest, but she doubted this, calling them an accident. He said he didn't call it a lie, and Almark and Torque went in pursuit of the monster despite the danger. He says that they should hurry, and the narrator remembers that he went to rescue a kidnapped child from the clutches of a monster. Almark doubts whether they believed him, and the other man reasons that perhaps nothing would have happened if he had told the teacher and everyone correctly. He hides behind a tree in the forest, watching someone who quickly runs away along a path, leaving footprints on the ground. He's fighting in the woods, screaming what, and damn it, then he cuts his hand and says ouch. He thinks about training and strength, and the other one resolutely declares that he will go with him, despite the danger and difficulties. He admitted that sooner or later he would be defeated in magic by this guy who waved his hand in a friendly manner. He says that just as he is desperately chasing after him now, one day he will have to pursue his magical successes. Almark feels helpless and pathetic when reflecting on his efforts, while others note his determination and equanimity in the face of obstacles. He contemplates the possibility of someone surpassing him in magic and accepting defeat due to lack of strength, but considers this to be predetermined by fate and the opponent's possible talent. He says decisively that he can run faster and must run no matter what, even though he is currently behind the other guy in magic. He vows to act as quickly as possible as he did that day. Almark noticed someone in the distance and reported that he saw him. He noticed that Torque was keeping up and expressed hope that the first year was still okay. He walks along a familiar but frightening path in the forest and hums quietly, trying to calm down. He says he has to go and help, and they are chased by Almark and Torque, who are chasing the monster. He is surprised that Wallace doesn't look like himself, and he talks about the appearance of a monster in the forest and a big disaster. He learned that Almark and Torque had gone to rescue a kidnapped first year, while the others had gone to call the teacher, discussing the danger of new monsters in the forest. He reassures his interlocutor, saying that it is not his fault, and the interlocutor tells him about a vision of a monster between the dormitory and the main building of the school. Morgan admitted that he was afraid to go further alone, and she replied that she would go instead of him and asked him to return to the building. He says that trying to catch up with them with his capabilities is risky, and the other agrees that he will only be a burden, not a help. He admitted his inability to help, and the other agreed and asked why he was going into the forest at all. He reassures his interlocutor by saying that he will take everything upon himself and that everyone has strengths and weaknesses, so there is no need to worry. Almark stands with a club, preparing to fight a huge beast that is approaching him menacingly. He exclaimed that his shoes were damaged when he stepped on the cracked ground. He notices a new enemy and warns that if they stay, they could be surrounded. He says with tension that he shouldn't have come here and expresses despair. A friend shouts a warning to Almark as a monster with a huge hand appears behind him. He barely had time to notice and note how deftly the enemy dodged the attack from behind. Almark explains that he then struck the monster in the face at the same moment. The monster marvels at the power, saying that it is truly amazing. He admits that he has poor flame control and fires 3 times, igniting 2 beast-like creatures that try to resist the fire. The monster says that fire is suitable for destroying such monsters, while another character stands nearby with his head down. Almark strikes a monster with one eye and a horn that lets out a cry of fear. He delivers a powerful blow to the monster, piercing its eye, while another man watches in horror. He forcefully thrusts a wooden stake into the monster's head, which lets out a threatening roar. He looks forward with determination, surrounded by splashes of ink, expressing internal struggle and tension. He notices nuts at the creature's feet and decides to help with magic again, wondering how it managed to pick them up. He watches the birds against the backdrop of the forest, making intermittent sounds. Almark, with wounds on his face, looks tensely at the dark figure and lets out an intermittent cry. He squeezes the head of a growling beast, which makes hoarse sounds. He spat in disgust at the creature and expressed contempt. Almark dropped to his knees, digging his hands into the ground from which sharp stones protruded, surrounded by a tense atmosphere and the sounds of destruction. He says with a dirty face that he is pleased, and the other one is surprised that he called him by name for the first time. He said he thought his name was different, and the other agreed, thinking that Almark was the same as Wallace and very cool. He confirms that this is his name, and the other person reacts to this with surprise and doubt. Almark laughs, and the other man asks in surprise what that was, watching him. He asks if Eldo can hear, and the other one checks him for wounds and says there are no visible injuries. He desperately tries to wake up Eldo, but hears that he won't wake up. He suggested that the little one might have lost consciousness, and the other replied that the monster could not have poisoned him, and did not know why he had not yet woken up. Almark explains that only Eldo doesn't wake up, and the other man asks in surprise what happened. They discuss the child's condition, and one of them explains that he simply used up all his magical energy. He said that he was told to leave quickly, and he thought that soon the area would be covered in fog, although at first he considered these words empty. He says that Eldo put his life on the line to protect Sicily, while the other agrees that not everyone could do that and calls him a good man. He ponders over the plan and the skills needed to win, while simultaneously doubting what would happen if he were in Eldo's place. He wonders if anyone could repeat such a dangerous act, while another says that Eldo cares and tries to teach something. He is happy to be under the supervision of such a wonderful first year, and the other says that Eldo still has a lot ahead of him and he has a lot to learn. They discuss what is largely the work of Almark, and one of them denies significant contribution to the case. He says that without Torque they would not have reached this place and that he helped him with magic in the battle, and the other one objects that this is not true. He asks the teacher to let him go with them, and the teacher explains that it is too early for younger students to participate in a research group that will destroy the lairs of dangerous monsters. He ordered her to wipe away the blood, then drank from the bottle, and she agreed, standing nearby in the forest. He said he didn't mind, and now it was Torque's turn, who answered in thought, after which the other one left, expressing irritation. The image shows a forest landscape with grass and trees, as well as part of the clothing of a person standing in a clearing. He calls out loudly for Torque, and the other two turn to Wendy and Morgan, who are watching warily at what is happening. Torque thanks his friends for their help, and they praise him, noting that he is really cool and didn't do anything special. He was warned about the injury, but he replied that everything was fine and it was not his blood, after which the interlocutor admitted that he was scared. Almark supports Morgan, who apologizes and blames himself for what happened, and he tries to calm him down and says that everything would have been different if Morgan had told the teacher. He says he survived thanks to another, who reminds him that he saw the claws himself. Almark thanks his interlocutor and says that knowing the enemy allows one to develop a battle strategy in advance. He asked if the story had helped him, to which his interlocutor answered in the affirmative, and he explained that he was talking about wool and horns. He admitted that he wanted to follow them into the forest, but he didn't have the courage, so he just wandered around, calling himself pathetic. He reasons that trying to catch up with them with his capabilities would be risky and disruptive, and the other agrees with this. He said that if someone else joined, it would help them a lot. He looks forward in surprise, without saying a word. He admitted that he thought he could handle it himself, but he was grateful to Torque for his help in finding Jaranan and noted that he would have been more confident with him. He thanks for the help and promises to contact Morgan next time, and the girl also wants to help Almark. She happily says that she will definitely invite him next time and that it would be better if Wendy joined too, and he agrees and adds Morgan. Almark reports that he is there, and the three discuss that Wallace is probably still stalking them, even though they haven't met him. He admitted that he had failed because the forest was too big and that he had been unable to catch up with Wallace, who had followed them after Morgana's story. They noticed that someone had left and asked Almark what was wrong with him, to which he replied that everything was fine. Almark admits to Wendy that he lied about the chase, smelling blood from Wallace. He is surprised and asks why another person did this to him while his face is partially covered in darkness. From now on, he decides to watch every suspicious person and share any information, and the interlocutor agrees and notes that it is unknown who will benefit from his words. Almark stretched and sighed with relief as he heard the bell ring. He greets Wendy and asks if she is going into the forest, to which she replies that she is going to get medicinal herbs for tomorrow's lesson and invites him to go with her. He says he has some herbs left that he will use tomorrow, and she replies that she is currently having a meditation lesson with teacher Loomis. Almark says goodbye to Wendy, wishing her luck and warning her to be careful. After the Almark incident, students were banned from going into the forest, and teachers and senior students went on an expedition to grow medicinal herbs in Celia's garden. Almark was informed that the forest had become safe for visiting, but going deeper was still prohibited, although he was not given a detailed explanation. Almark explains that Eldo, having exhausted his magical power and survived the shock, returned to school 2 days later, and the elementary school students returned to their usual routine. He and Torque, who saved the elementary school student, became famous, but the students' interest in their feat gradually faded, since no one was hurt and little was said about the incident. Almark, reading the book, is disappointed by the unexpected difficulty of the fight with the demon Jaranan, for whom the victory was not a source of pride. He thoughtfully recalls that he didn't want to admit the fight with Almark, and she reads the newspaper and mentions Torque. Almark asks who Lord Borak is, and the other explains that they talked about him in class and showed him a statue in the garden. He explains that Lord Borak's statue is in a labyrinth among the thickets, and the other agrees and adds that there are many other statues there. He talks about a garden with labyrinthine paths and symmetrical bushes, which are maintained by the Academy's gardeners. He put the book on the table and asked what happened to Lord Borak. He says that as night falls, the statue of Lord Borak begins to talk, and the other asks not to exaggerate the situation. Almark calmly answers yes, and the other one, surprised, demands that he become more surprised and scared, apologizing for his answer. He asks why the other one is screaming so loudly, and the other one replies that it sounds like a horror story, and the third one asks him to be quieter. He calls on everyone to listen, saying that this is the perfect time, while another remarks that Almark simply has a bad imagination. Almark walks through the dark garden at night, listening to the quiet whispers that seem to come from the depths of the labyrinth. He talks about the labyrinth and the voice, and the others listen attentively and react to his words. Almark doubts the veracity of the story, and another character is surprised and asks if this story is from Morgan's life. He suggested that everyone go together in the evening to look at the statue of Borak, but the other refused to go to the scary place and expressed disagreement. Almark asks if they are going, and the other reproaches the interlocutor for being boring and refusing, to which he replies that he is not very interested, and the girl agrees. He warns that it is dangerous to go to such places alone, while the other assures that everything is fine and a security guard patrols the garden at night. Almark advises Nelson to be careful at night, and he replies that he will go into the garden, despite the excitement, and the girl decides to find out whose voice she heard. He turns to Wallace, asking him to listen carefully, and he responds with interest and agrees to go with him. Almark considers the proposal too risky, while another man insists on going in the evening, and a third praises the storyteller for an interesting story. He is surprised, and another character says with a smile that it is for him. Almark warns Nelson to be careful, and he promises to do so. He walked into the room thinking about Nelson, who responded with surprise and asked again. Almark says that he went into the garden last night, and another notices that Nelson is very pale and asks if everything is okay with him. He said that he heard a voice from the labyrinth and couldn't sleep, and his interlocutor was surprised and asked if he was serious. Almark explained that he heard a voice although no one was there, and the other admitted that he was not afraid and suggested that he was very scared. She notes a strange story. He confirms Nelson's voice, and the other admits that he was unable to sleep due to excitement and is advised to watch his appetite. Almark discusses with her the danger of rumors and admits that he is going to go there at night, despite warnings. He explains that he is not an expert in magic, and the girl admits that she would feel more confident around someone who has strong fighting skills. He listens as she says that he will become an incredibly powerful magician, although right now these are just beautiful words about him. She says with a smile that magic is his passion. That night after dinner, he noted that in the end only 3 remained. 3 people discuss demonic fire, one is surprised, another says that Lilith left earlier, and the third agrees to go further. They discuss how it's about the same time as yesterday and that they can use both hands, and he hopes it wasn't a mistake. He clenched his hand into a fist as he stood on the cobblestone street, and then the scene switched to an empty forest. He noted that it was quite light here and it didn't look like a place for ghosts, and she replied that the stronger the light, the darker the shadows. They discuss the direction to Lord Borak's labyrinth. The girl asks to stay in the middle between 2 strong guys. Nelson praises the other for his courage in coming alone, and the other replies that he is not afraid either, and they discuss how they managed to get so far alone. Almark said that the voice could not be heard yet, and the other warned that the entrance was dangerous and was surprised by his own words. He doubts whether they should go in yet, and the other one confirms that he heard the sound yesterday and suggests waiting a little longer. Almark notices the light of the lamp and calls to go to him, and 2 others behind encourage him and ask him to hurry. He asks why they hid and is told to be a little quieter while he leaves. They discuss a plan to avoid punishment for escaping, considering that they could be scolded and punished if they are found. He thoughtfully recalls that he hasn't seen Mr. Judo since the first day of classes and thinks about how to say hello to him next time. He looks towards the dark sea under the light of the full moon. Almark notices a voice from the labyrinth and asks what is going on, and she expresses concern and inquires about what happened. He explained that there had been no wind before, and the girl was surprised and asked if it was true, to which he replied that the wind was just blowing. Almark notices that it is dark and agrees to move on when another character suggests going ahead. He suggests turning left, and the girl complains that she can't hear anything and feels like a deaf grandmother as they walk down the street. Almark explains that he knows every path in the labyrinth, as he has been playing hide and seek here since 1st grade, and explains that it is not necessary to go to Lord Borak. He notes that Wendy has everything under control and confirms that the bushes stand motionless, as if in a windless room. Almark notices that the spring is in the center of the garden and they are almost at the finish line, but he is bothered by the wind and a slight breeze since they entered the labyrinth. He notices that the voice is getting closer and more annoying, and someone is saying that he needs to turn left at the intersection to get to the square. Almark yells at Wendy and Nelson to gather the wind, noticing that the wind has become very weak and has begun to dissipate across the area. Nelson calls for the wind to be returned, assuring that 2 can do it, and he agrees with the wind technique. He hears a voice and asks Nelson to continue blowing in that direction, using his powers with concentration. Almark asks to forget what happened, and the other man proves that he could not sleep because of anxiety and bruises under his eyes. He is surprised by the whispering wind technique that Nourish can already use, and she explains that she is still practicing and is not very stable. He explains magic that transmits words on the wind over long distances, and says that skilled magicians can send messages across the sea, although it takes time. Almark asks why she used the chain, and she replies that she scattered it throughout the labyrinth, explaining the complexity of the magic of transmitting words. He shouts that it's all nonsense, and the other man ponders the meaning of the message, while the woman denies her premonitions and asks to stop arguing. Almark surprises his interlocutor with his mysteriousness, and the other denies that he is Lord Borak's granddaughter, calling himself not an idiot. He asks if they should continue the conversation, and she asks if there is still time to go to the garden again, turning to another man. Almark stands at the door and listens attentively as someone on the other side tries to open the lock. He took a step, and a group of people with lanterns walked along the path among the trees. She says that in her 1st year of study she was teased for being whiny, and now she is in her 3rd year of study, and in the company there is Eston, Palua, and someone else. She said that the neighbors made fun of her, laughing at her tears, and Lilith seemed even more lonely, and she did not want her neighbor to see her crying. He said the place was already being used for games, but then she made a surprising discovery. He said that he first noticed a monument that resembled the girl's grandfather, who was happy about her admission to the academy but died before that. She says that even on difficult days she would come to her grandfather's monument and think about him, despite the slight differences in his facial features. Almark listens as the girl talks about her attempts to master the whispering wind technique and her decision to share the events with her grandfather in this very place. She said that every day after dinner she sent stories through the window by the wind, and at that moment he understood everything, even about the wind. He explains that the labyrinth is surrounded by thickets, and the wind gathers in the central area due to the topography of the garden and the wind direction set by Nourish. He was surprised that the aspects described were important, and she admitted that it was worth practicing more and noted that it had become a strange myth. He speculates that Nelson was emotionally shaken and was trying to express friendly feelings, albeit a little unclearly. Nelson suggested they play hide-and-seek together, remembering how she cried in the maze in first grade, when they were in different classes and didn't know each other. He decided to go first and asked to make sure the others got home, and she offered to go together and called Nelson to wait. He said that he had left, and she laughed and asked to send it back, to which he agreed. Almark reflects on his place at the academy as he watches his classmates improve in magic, even though he is only allowed to meditate. He asks if he is listening to the interlocutor, who talks about people voluntarily studying complex magic and Twerk's impressive skills. Almark asked him how he planned to spend his holidays and apologized when he replied that he planned to return home. He explains that he will go north for the holidays and will not return to the academy for at least a year, and his interlocutor says that he has nowhere to go and will stay in the dormitory. The text tells that Morgan is the son of a woodcutter from a village, and after he entered a magical academy, the Lord offered his family a small pension. He explains that his parents cannot take him home, so he must earn money and take care of his sister, who was born in recent years. Almark asks Wendy about her summer vacation and where she's going, and another guy promises to have fun with her sometimes. He and the girl discuss how Wallace is most likely going home and the estate is being managed by a deputy while they look at a map in the library. He looks at the map and says that he has seen these lands and that the journey along the Royal Road in a white horse-drawn carriage is very long. He was surprised by fishing every day, and the other replied that the two of them would get boring, and noted that only he and Almark would remain. She invited them to go with her, and he admitted that it was too far. Almark happily agrees to stay for a week, and the others discuss the possibility of reaching Garantor in 2 days and staying with them for 10 days. He explains that he will be having meditation training, and the interlocutor asks if he will be able to meditate on the way and apologizes for the question. Almark asks him not to go to Garantor alone, and the other man says that he doesn't have to force himself, and the girl explains that it's just her idea. He explained that he wanted to return home in 5 days, not 10, and clarified that he didn't mind, which surprised her. A friend supports Almark, explaining the importance of exams, which determine his ability to go on summer vacation and move up to the next grade. Almark reassures Morgan that he can handle magic and spirits, and he notices Layla at the piano. He explains that he was falling behind in class due to a lack of extracurricular activities, but he trained more than others, and his interlocutor agrees with him. Almark thinks he might not be able to go to Wendy, but his interlocutor advises him that even if he flies low, he still won't crash. He felt guilty and stupid, but admitted he had learned a lot, and she offered to help, telling him to let him know if it was a problem. Almark asks what he can do for her, reflecting on the little things he has learned during his travels. He listens intently, feeling the tension in the air. Almark realizes that the boy is 11 years old and reflects on his desire to repay Wendy for helping him with his studies. He admits that he doesn't understand what love or hate is, and the other man suggests that he's probably in love with Wendy. He reminds that memory will be important in the life of a wizard, and advises to cherish the feelings that compress the heart, remembering it forever. She smiles, holding the books, and says that Wendy is acting voluntarily and that he is not annoying her by reminding her of Wendy's feelings. Almark asks if he is willing to come to Wendy's aid if she gets into trouble, to which he replies that she has to deal with her own problems. He said it was beyond his competence, and the other person thought about it and asked why he thought she didn't feel the same way as he did now. Almark says that a good magician remains independent of emotions and is able to distance himself from negative feelings, while another suggests ending the conversation and continuing. She explains that the formation of the world is largely determined by the two pillars of the Middle Eight. He wearily thinks about the difficulties of studying at the academy, and she confidently asks for names, assuring that she remembers everything. The image shows a circle with numbers and explanations about the Great Four, the Middle Eight and the 16 small ones that govern the phenomena of the world. Almark reflects on the fact that not a single name of the gods of the north is mentioned, and that this world is completely different compared to his. He talks about the gods and the creation of the world, and she confirms and explains the roles of the strong Ikren and the flexible Sumisnef. He asks Lilith to continue, and she whispers, then thanks both of them for their help in talking about names and creatures. He recalls the words about the Lord of the Dark Abyss, and she confirms that everyone repeated the material well. The teacher warns that exams are starting soon, it's getting hotter, and advises not to overdo the preparation. Almark suggests going into the forest for a day to jump into the river, and his interlocutor enthusiastically agrees, explaining that this is the point. He reassures Nelson, who is worried about his first exam, who offers to go together in hopes that teacher Loomis will allow him to skip meditation classes. The heroes discuss that Almark has recently come to the academy and is in a difficult situation, but Wendy always supports and helps him. He is surprised and says that they have done this before, and the other character explains that he will not go because of important matters during the summer holidays. Almark considers a walk a waste of a day and is sure that in the rain he will not want to exercise, and another character dreams of being as brilliant as Wallace. He approaches Wallace, inviting him to go for a walk, and he asks in surprise what happened. He promises that the stream will be at the disposal of the interlocutor, discussing the upcoming exams and the opportunity to learn something in the forest. He says that he will study and prepare for the exams, and another character explains that he can go if he is ready to bear the consequences. He warns that if they start moving, the waves will rise, and reminds them that they must take responsibility for the consequences of their actions. He called Almark to go further, but he responded with silence and bewilderment. Students, including Almark with gray hair, are taking written tests as the teacher announces the exam to begin. He reads a quest about a mage who called on mages to go out into the sun, and comes to the conclusion that it is the mage Lesheril. He explains that art is the execution of martial movements, and she talks about healing with medicinal herbs. He explains that a wild wolf, trying to imitate a domestic dog, will look exactly like this, and the other listens and thinks about his words. Almark answers a teacher's question about the first king of the kingdom of Garai during an oral exam. He explains the rules and asks questions, and he answers by listing the names of the 3 principalities and the features of the whispering wind technique. She announces that this is the last exam, asks everyone to come in one by one and return to the dormitory after the exam, wishing everyone good luck. Almark assures that everything will be fine. He reflects on the risks in magic, and the other two discuss when it will all end and what questions there will be. He explains that he was actually only doing meditation and doesn't believe in things that don't exist. Almark asks if it is really necessary to exert himself so much and doubts that he is capable of anything more, saying goodbye to his interlocutor. She admitted that she was afraid of disappointing Wendy and did not strive for good grades, but did not want to give up and stay in extra classes. He praised his interlocutor for levitating objects and called him the best in the class. He admitted that he didn't have any magic and was jealous of Almark, who would soon pass the exam, and he apologized for it. He says that everyone is jealous of Almark and reminds him not to forget his things, and he reflects on envy and his understanding of the situation. The named Almark thanks for waiting and offers to begin, noting that he is the last. Someone demands to show progress in lessons, addressing the interlocutor. Almark ponders the stone and his progress in class while another man watches him silently. They discuss Lilith's abilities, suggesting she could use magic to turn a rock into a gem or a rabbit, and recall Torque chasing Jaranan. He remembers that Torque taught him stone carving and decides to try again, despite his past failures. Almark asks for a decision and shows the results of his meditation and stone carving, explaining that this is the only technique he has mastered. He closes his eyes, breathes deeply and imagines magic concentrated at the tip of his wand to make his dream come true. Almark worries, wondering if he can do this for Wendy, but the other man assures him that everything will be fine. He reflects on how progress in class is a form of meditation and decides to show his teacher his strength, despite the misunderstanding of those around him. He admitted that he lost his head for a moment, but remembered the words of his friends and did everything possible, and the other did not understand his plan at first. Almark explains that the test tests the student's skills, and the student promises to meet expectations and thanks his friends. He praises the student for his success in meditation and promises to begin teaching magic after the holidays, and he enthusiastically agrees. He is glad that he will finally be able to learn magic, and the other notes that the son of a northern mercenary will indeed become a mage. He asked Almark what he was doing there and then heard a knock on the door and answered it. Almark and Nourish are late for the meeting, argue with Nelson about the reasons for the delay, and finally join the others. He thanks her for helping him with his exams, and she praises him and credits his success to him. He asked what was going on and noted that she had taught him to study hard, to which she replied that she was glad to hear that. He asked why, and Wendy said it was a secret and asked him to look up, after which the others began to catch up with them. They watched the fireworks and she enthusiastically confirms his guess, remembering that there were exams before today. He and she watch as the seniors launch magical fireworks into the sky to celebrate the end of exams, and she points it out with delight. He looks up in surprise, as if noticing something unexpected. Almark greets Wendy and says that magic is amazing, but she can't hear well because of the noise around her. He learned that he ranked 25th out of 46 and passed the first exam well, while others discussed the results and avoided retaking. The day before leaving, he says that he and the other guys won't be able to see each other for a while and they discuss why they need to go into each room. Almark and the other children are discussing not going home and who will come for them, with one of them joking that they don't look bored at all. He asks Lilith if her parents will take her away and offers to give her a new handkerchief. Almark says he's going to Wendy's room, and the others ask Morgan to wait, but he's already leaving, surprising his interlocutors. She called someone and asked what he was doing there. Almark introduced himself as a dormitory inspection officer, apologized for the intrusion, and then promised to let him know when Ward Butler arrived, and agreed to write a letter after returning home. He asks where to go next, and the other asks Wendy to leave if she has somewhere to go, explaining that children like them are not wanted by anyone and they have nowhere to go. He said he would leave before noon tomorrow and she asked what was going on and he confirmed it. Almark says goodbye to the girl, and then a boy calls out to him, demanding that he go to Nelson, to which he sheepishly agrees. The next morning he went for a walk among the trees under a cloudy sky. Almark reflects on the fact that they are still far from their goal, but still believes that they had a good time after the exam. He asked Layla what she was doing there and learned that they were waiting for her at the port, after which he told her to be careful. He reflects on the complex political relations between the kingdoms and notices that she tries to avoid attention when returning home. He reflects on the fact that Layla also has difficulties, remembering her words that she does not have time for this. Almark, watching from the window, sighs as a group of people enter the building, one of them holding a spear. He is glad that he was able to help Eldo, who notices that he always lectures him. He looks thoughtfully out the window and reflects that there is no point in regretting his lack of preparation, even if his father came for him. Almark reflects on his father's dignity and principles, remembering his strictness and being proud of him despite 6 years of absence. He says he will face reality and family, another refuses to talk to him, and the third agrees, albeit with doubt. Almark advises them to start practicing meditation so as not to drag them both down, and the other one replies that there is no need to be so rude and asks them to shut up. He asks the man if Wendy is being taken away and wonders if her classmates are there, while the others discuss where Wendy has gone and what to do now. Almark introduced himself and said that he was looking for Wendy, after which they discussed where it would be better to look, at the school or in the forest. He warns about the problems with the division and decides to go check the forest, and the others ask him not to leave and express regret. Almark asks where Wendy has been and worries that she is okay while she stands on the cliff and he runs through the forest. He says they better hurry, and she explains that she was just walking in the woods and regrets that they had to look for her. Almark greets Lisa while another man asks her not to admire him, calling himself a commoner. He apologizes for disturbing him, and the other man explains that there are no nobles or commoners at the academy, and everyone is studying to be a magician. Almark receives good day wishes and reminds him of his master's order not to be rude, and also mentions that the interlocutor is Miss Wendy's classmate. He apologized for the wait, and she replied that it was okay as long as the man stood at the door watching them. He says he must go despite the objections, and the other explains that he was planning to invite Almark and Morgan to visit for the summer holidays. He asked her why she had gone into the forest, and she replied that she had simply wanted to look at the flowers, after which the old man praised the smiling Wendy as a source of joy to the family. She said she noticed the buds of a pink hollyhock flower and decided to check it out, and he listened, learning that the flower only blooms in midsummer. Almark and the others came to the gate, where he admitted that he did not know about the love of flowers, and she apologized for the excitement. She says she will write a letter. He promises to wait and asks her to be careful on the way, after which he briefly agrees. The man told Miss that it was time for them to go. She agreed, and Almark thanked her for seeing them off and said goodbye to them. He wished him luck, and the other one, with short blonde hair, looked back and raised his hand. She suggests that Almark split the textbooks between the two of them, and he listens silently. Almark recalls the hardest day of the year for the guards, and another man thanks him for his work and confirms that it was Wendy. He says everything is fine and remembers that he was prepared for this from the moment he came to the academy, and another character clarifies that he will not go to his family. Almark said that after a year and a half of solo travel, he doesn't feel the desire to return home, and asked if Layla left first. He asks his interlocutor about Wallace, who went home last night and leaves alone every year. Almark talks about Wallace, recalling his childhood and origins, and reflects on a secret that grows darker. He asks how he is doing and whether he is settled into the academy, to which he replies that he got used to it quickly and cannot use magic. Almark and another man are discussing summer vacation plans with Morgan, and he is looking forward to a trip to Wendy's that will last about 5 days. He says in despair that the holidays are over, while the other happily announces the receipt of a letter and is about to open it. They are sitting by the pond with fishing rods. One asks the other to cheer up, and the other replies that after yesterday it is not easy. A young man with gray hair thoughtfully reads a letter that talks about Lord Elmond and his political enemies. He says that threats with carcasses of small animals were sent to the minister's house, and Wendy left the house on her father's orders, and the situation is changing because of his daughter. He reflects on failure and how Wendy feels now, admitting that she can't catch a fish. He muses on Morgan's lethargy and lack of interest in fishing, while the other agrees to go just for company, despite being forcibly drawn in. He says that the melancholy still gnaws at his soul, and another remarks that the hollyhock is blooming so beautifully, but Almark says that his soul is filled with melancholy and asks where the hollyhocks are blooming, and another character recounts his words in surprise. He pointed out the place and he confirmed that he would indeed go there, surprised by the question. He is surprised to see flowers for the first time and says that he has heard about them, and the other says that they even grow in his house. He decided to give the flower to Wendy and expressed his wish for her to see it. Almark explains that it's a 4-day journey to Garantor and Wendy, studying a map of the Kingdom of Garai with his companion in his room. He discusses travel plans and expenses with a friend, who is outraged by the cost and suggests spending the night outdoors, fearing the consequences. On the main road of the Kingdom of Garai, white carriages on magical metal horses move, and people discuss the high cost of travel and the lack of choice. They go to the school building and he says that they will have to use this method, after which the other agrees and calls Morgan to go. He, with gray eyes, says that he shouldn't have followed the other one, and the old man thoughtfully says and calls it a curse. Almark resolutely asks for money to go to Miletus, causing surprise and bewilderment among those around him. The old man asks why they are going to Miletus, and he advises them not to be shy about asking for help if they need a lot of money. He explains that he wants to show flowers to support his lonely friend, while the other one reacts with caution. He explained that he did not have a large sum of money and suggested that they go in a white carriage along the royal road, and his interlocutor promised to think of something. He was surprised to agree to go and visit his friend, and the old man confirmed that he saw no reason to refuse, believing in his truthfulness. Almark explains that after completing the plans, they must immediately return to school, and the two thank him and ask for forgiveness. He says that the stars do move, and the other replies that in that case. He suggested going into town for shopping, and the other agreed and said that he would also take some money, after which they began to get ready. He reads the scroll carefully, then the man at the window ponders, and a third man stands in the shadows watching them. He demands to know more about Elman's case, asking about his daughter. He reported that thanks to their efforts they had reached Miletus and asked about the mercenaries, to which he received the answer that they were already on their way. The man orders to wait a few days until the enemy weakens their position, and the servant agrees with his plan. He exclaimed joyfully about the port of Lurbud, while another noted that he had not been there for a long time. Almark said he worked for a month before entering the academy, and the interviewee was surprised that it took so long. He said that they would be in Garantor by noon tomorrow, and the other was surprised, thinking that they were already there. He explains that if Garantor spreads across the entire horizon, it means the interlocutor is already in Garantor, and the other warns not to be stupid. He warns that all roads lead to Garantor and urges you to hold on tight to avoid getting stuck in the waiting area behind others. Almark is glad that all the formalities are settled, and the two companions discuss spending the night in the open air and the hope of help in the future. The seller treats him to free meat and says that it is delicious, but he admires the appearance of the food and asks only to look. Almark asks if he can handle it all, and Morgan eats it with delight and says that everything is delicious as they walk towards the white carriages. He apologized and admitted that he looked inappropriate, and the woman asked about today's flight to Miletus and praised him. Almark insists on finding another place to spend the night, despite the danger, and the woman explains that the flight left in the morning and they need to go to Renov's. He and his companion agree to stay at a decent hotel, receiving a room key and directions to the tavern and waiting area. Almark says there aren't many drunks now and agrees, while another notes that food is cheaper. He ate a lot of dumplings and needs to eat after a long walk. He is sitting at a table in a noisy tavern, loud laughter and conversations can be heard around him. He looks focused and a little tense. He agreed to the proposal to sit in the corner, and the two men discussed that the situation could worsen in the evening and promised to return immediately after eating. Almark and his companions are eating in a cafe, thanking them for the food, while other customers discuss their order and ask them to wait a minute. He recognized the scent of mercenaries and remembered the man who had fought in their ranks in the north. Almark is asked to eat faster and return to the room, while others discuss that everything is fine and there was no fight. He notices his interlocutor's fright and asks what's wrong, and the other apologizes for the sudden interruption of the silence. One of the mercenaries said that the northern mercenary mentioned Wendy's last name, and he doesn't think it will end well for her. He wants to eavesdrop on the conversation of three people behind him, and another one notices that he is speaking too loudly and calls Wendy's name. Almark explains to Morgan that the people from the north are mercenaries, and discusses the origins and reputation of one girl from Garai. He explained that war is about protecting villages and exterminating monsters, including killing, and also said that the war is only in the north, despite the lack of point in going south. Almark suggests the letter may be the work of Lord Almond's political enemies, while the other man thinks it's a big coincidence. He says he has a bad feeling and wants to know what they are talking about to find out, and the other one supports and says that the voice hunting technique is difficult. Almark explains that he can't do magic, but for safety's sake, Wendy asks Morgan to help, and he agrees to try. He explains to Morgan that he sat at the wrong table and then praises him for his efforts with the food. Morgan struggles with uncomfortable clothing in the heat, while Almark notices and recounts his doubts about Wendy's words. He reflects on the plans of the three guys from the tavern to attack the estate and that killing Wendy is just part of their job. He said he didn't want mercenaries coming into their kingdom, and the other agreed and called them terrible and unforgivable. He explains that the best way to protect Wendy is to go to Miletus, but the other doubts that they will be believed and allowed to go. He asks what to do after arriving, and another explains that Mr. Ward needs to be informed of the plans in order to tighten security and prevent interference. Almark announces his arrival in 3 days and suggests going to bed early, while the other man firmly declares that he will not leave the girl in trouble. They noted that everything happened as quickly as expected from the white carriage. He asked if his interlocutor was worried about yesterday, to which he replied that northern mercenaries never throw words to the wind. Almark is worried about Wendy and hopes they get to Miletus soon, while another man notices that he doesn't seem very worried. He admits to being nervous and trying not to think about the bad, explaining that solutions come to him when he lives his normal routine rather than thinking hard. He convinces the other that he is strong and may not understand him, but he firmly refuses, calling him young lady and shouting no way. Almark notices that someone has forgotten something, while others discuss the difficulties of a male servant and the forgetfulness of a lady from a good family. The man explains that Mayasha has disappeared, and the girl insists that Mayasha is not a toy, but the young lady's favorite teddy bear. He asked how Mayasha had disappeared, and she explained that she had confused him with the fabric that the servants were collecting for sewing, and that she had left Mayasha in Garantora. Almark asks not to be shy while the girl demands to take the fabric, explaining that it ended up in the young lady's bag, not Mush's. Morgan asks what he's going to do with the child, to which he replies that nothing, and the man explains that children calm down if you talk to them. Almark warns against interfering too much, while another notes that he is somehow different today. He takes a pen out of his backpack at the request of his interlocutor, who is surprised that the bear has arms, legs and ears. Almark greets, and the other says that he made a toy for his sister and praises her talent, calling the work cute and exaggerated. She reasons that he may not be as handsome as Mayasha, but he will be a great travel companion. Almark suggests naming the bear, and another boy proudly calls it his masterpiece, and the girl agrees with him. He listens as two people argue over the name of the bear, one insisting on the name Will and the other demanding something cuter. Nuria and Will introduce themselves, and the two boys discuss their younger brother and ask permission to talk to them. He asked the girl sitting next to him what her name was while two other boys watched them. Almark said he had just been caught realizing, and the other understood what he meant and smiled back. He explains that the white carriage won't go any faster and suggests that he should take a better look at the situation, admitting that he has forgotten the obvious. He says that it's not about something complicated, but about the fact that scary things are worth thinking about, and decides to sit down next to Morgan, who promises to think about something fun. Almark explained that after spending the night in the open air they needed to wash well at a hotel called Bola, and the interlocutor agreed. An image of Almark appears with another character against the backdrop of a village street, and below, the laughter of a group of people at a fountain can be heard. She sits sadly at the table with a book and thinks that 9 days have passed since their arrival in Miletus, but even on vacation she cannot walk in the sun. The man warns her that she is in danger and cannot leave the estate, and she says that she came on her father's orders and dreams of walks and picnics. She admitted to being selfish and explained that she couldn't invite Almark and Morgan over because Ward was too worried about her. He refuses, and she begs him to stay in Garantor a little longer, addressing him as a father. Morgan is genuinely happy to see him, and the narrator explains that she wanted to see him smile and show him the estate with delicious food. Almark appears as a mysterious guy from the northern lands, and the girl wonders if he will forgive her and is going to write a letter of apology. She said she wanted him to meet her family, see the house, and despite his initial indifference, she invited him anyway. She admitted that she deliberately made a sad face so that Almark would agree to come, although he looked irritated and ended up spending the holidays alone. He reads the letter and says that everything is fine and thinks that this was the end, and the other two discuss his meditation and indifference. She sits by the window and thinks about how she acted badly and is afraid that she is nobody to him if he read her letter and remained indifferent. She thoughtfully lowered her head into her hands and reflected on the fact that the events were taking place far from Miletus and even began to seem to her. He climbs the stairs, thinking that the journey would cost a lot of money, and turns to the young lady. She asks if others have come all this way, turning to the young lady. He asked in a restrained tone why he was screaming like that and what was happening to the freak while squeezing another person's hand. She climbs the stairs, confessing that she has committed a terrible act and hears voices, convincing herself that it is a dream. Almark fell to the ground and was glad he had his bag with him while others expressed surprise and addressed him as a young lady. He and others came to Wendy without permission, apologized and explained that they wanted to see her, hoping not to disturb her. He admires the taste and appearance of the food, and the girl is glad that they liked it and offers to bring more if they want. Almark vows to use only one fork at the table, causing admiration and laughter among those around him. She asked how they got there, and he replied that it was nothing special, explaining that food should be filling, not tasty. Morgan warns Wendy not to mislead her, and he reveals that Almark tricked the director into giving him money for a ride in a white carriage. He said they had brought Wendy a gift, and she asked in surprise if it was a book as he took it out of his bag. Wendy thanks him, asking about the book, and he offers to open it here and encourages her. Morgan said that Almark found a flower near a stream on the island of Norsk and enthusiastically offered to show it, while the other man asked not to talk about it. He said not to mislead Wendy, and another confirmed that he had devised a plan and swindled money from the director. She thanks him with tears, and the two boys are surprised and say thank you, looking at the inscription on the stone. 3 people are discussing food, one thanks him for the treat, and the girl says she will always cherish him. He said the dinner was delicious and everyone was looking forward to tomorrow, and another wondered if it was edible, receiving an affirmative answer. He explains that he kills for the greater good and not out of petty philanthropy, considering the lives of others only as a means to save his own. The narrator describes the mercenary Pasulto, whose squad, the Fresh Blood, was weak and could not act as a united front, but he managed to avoid mistakes to remain successful. The Fresh Blood mercenaries suffered irreparable damage, one of the units of the Fire Dragon squad fell apart, and 6 months ago, Ghazal made his first mistake. 3 men discussed the persecution of an aristocratic family from the southern kingdom and their reasons for leaving the north due to bad reputation and hostility. Almark talks about an unexpected offer related to mercenaries in the central lands, comparing the situation to the kingdom of Garai. He returned and said that the security was weak, and that it was possible to infiltrate the estate and immediately destroy the target upon receiving the order. He explains that they try not to arouse suspicion and pretend to take their work seriously in order to protect themselves and meet the demands of their employers. He noted that the situation has changed today. After the report of 2 strange children in the estate, the situation changed dramatically, and one of those present noted that they intended to lay siege. The man says that with the arrival of children everything has changed, and the siege of the fortress with such a guard will be difficult, acknowledging the missed opportunity. He insists on attacking this evening, explaining that waiting until the day after tomorrow is dangerous, while the other doubts, reminding him of the order. 2 men discuss the increase in the number of people in the estate. One orders Delan to gather everyone, noting that only 2 children have been added. 2 men argue about preparing for an attack. One says he doesn't want to go back to hell, and the other demands they stop joking. He explains that one cannot let go of a source of income and threatens to expose the organizers, while the other notes that he always tries to get the most out of the situation. A man with short hair asks another man to quickly call everyone, and the other thanks him for kicking him out of this place. He looks at the house and says that now they are free from the harsh northern winds, but they will have to survive here. The man with short hair is outraged by the futility of the estate's guards and asks what they are doing, and the wounded man replies that it is a waste of time and shameful. He notices the abbess and orders to find a place to descend, wondering who could have come up with this idea. They advance, one says he will go first, another allows them to continue, and the third notices a passage ahead. Several men discuss the gravity of the situation and the need to increase the number of detections by tomorrow. One of them encourages Delane. He reflects on his one wrong choice in life as the battle to protect the estate begins around him. 2 men are heading towards the back entrance and a security guard is yelling at them to stop and not let the thugs in. He barely manages to say stop, and makes a hoarse sound surrounded by grinding sounds. He reacts to the hiccups with a tense expression while hearing the KRK sound nearby. The wounded man screams about the pain and the loss of his arm, and Almark says that there is no point in them dealing with him and advises them to run and hide in the shadows. They discuss the target on the 3rd floor and the chances of fighting in the north, warning each other not to say too much. A hand squeezes a metal pipe, making a crack sound. He orders not to waste a minute while another man breaks down the door with axes and a third stands next to the body on the floor. Almark thrusts his sword into the ground with force, causing the surrounding area to crack and shake. 2 men discuss what to do if a girl runs away and are surprised by the condition of the people lying on the floor, considering them to be experienced fighters. He says with disdain that Boyd was mistaken and was killed with 1 blow, showing the body on the floor. Almark is shocked by the death of an experienced mercenary. The others discuss who could have done it and try to understand what is happening. He exclaimed as he noticed Delane standing against the wall with another man. Almark killed a man, and witnesses with serious faces realized what had happened. He explains that the other one was paralyzed or something like that, accompanying the words with a slapping sound. Almark dodged the blow with minimal movement and counterattacked, explaining that he simply did not move. He denies being a mercenary and says he is just a friend of the girl in response to the man's accusations about his age and family. He says that if he is a mercenary, then a southern noblewoman cannot be friends with a northern mercenary, and demands to come up with a more plausible explanation. He looks closely at the two men, one of whom is warning the other about possible danger. He said the name of the cavalry with a tense look, Black Wolf. He says the name of the move Shadow Fong as he prepares to attack with his sword. He declared with determination that he was Reese's son. Almark, on horseback, accuses another rider of killing the mercenaries and destroying the squad, calling him the son of the Shadow Fawn and a dark devil. He asks about his father and the mercenaries he fought with, and he replies that he hates him to the bone. Three men discuss the best fighters, naming them and noting their exceptionalism. He said he would deal with the little bastard himself. Almark acknowledged the enemy's strength, but noted that it was only for a child and nothing more. He attacks sharply, delivering a powerful blow with his sword to the opponent, who tries to defend himself. Almark fights with the enemy, parrying his blows and delivering counterattacks. Two people run to the door, and he, with a sword, prepares for battle and says that he will do it now. She sits thoughtfully by the window, looking into the distance through the curtains. She exclaimed, and he announced that the mission was complete. He says the mission is complete and there's no more dealing with a madman holding the severed head of a woman who needed to be killed. He, with a club in his hands, is surprised that there is a magician in front of him, and a voice from above asks who he is. He suddenly bursts into the room, and the other man prepares to attack, parrying the blow with his hand. He wounded his opponent in the stomach with a sword, and he responded by shooting at his legs. He admits that he didn't want to do it, even though he planned to, and then sees the unpleasant sight of a body falling to the floor. She apologizes to Wendy, expressing regret. Morgan shouts, ordering an immediate attack, while the other man reacts in surprise to the sudden kick. Almark fights an opponent who admits that he was killed by the warrior Almark and calls him the warrior Deland. He is shocked with a pierced chest and says that the warrior is made, noting that this is it. He reflects that it is better to die in battle than to rot under the warm southern wind, lying on the grass among the plants. He has blood on his face and a wound on his shoulder, breathing heavily, trying to collect himself after the fight. He fell into the bushes with a sword in his hand and cursed, expressing irritation. He surveys the battlefield, noting the death of Delan and his men, and decides to retreat to gather a new team. He looks at the vase in surprise, and the other one says that now only he is left and wonders what is going on. Almark menacingly declares that he will not allow the girl to be killed, and another man accuses him of pranks and calls him a bastard. He hit the ground with force, causing a crack and destruction all around. Almark explains that Reese also has a hidden Fong and talks about Jeruz and his deputy, who leads a powerful squad of black wolves. He considers the mission a failure and understands that killing the target is now impossible, and the other asks if he is going to let it go. He asks if the enemy is going to surrender, to which he replies in the negative, and he states that he must eliminate any threat to his girlfriend. He threatens to take life and says that he will break through by any means necessary. He refused to introduce himself, and Almark recognized him as a worthy opponent, calling him Silver Skull Gazalt. He lies in bed and another man says that he knows his name and has heard of the atrocities of his mercenary company, concluding that he does not act like a. He said that although he was a villain, he was recognized by his interlocutor's father as a first-class mercenary, and he confirmed this knowledge. He threatens the enemy, promising to show the skill of the mercenary Silver Skull and orders him to remember this spectacle for the rest of his short life. He thinks that a long fight is pointless and would like to deal with the enemy with one blow, but he will not allow him to get close so easily. He said that all his subordinates were killed, and that the enemy has a mage buddy, so it is difficult to fight two at the same time. He thinks how easy it is mentally, while the other one delivers a powerful blow with a sword to the wall. He stands with a sword ready for battle, and another notes that he is not afraid at all and does not feel anger or fear. Almark delivers a powerful blow with his sword, and the enemy notices that his eyes seem to have changed. He was hit in the back but did not fall, realizing that survival is a real test, and the enemy called him a nasty brat. Almark, with blood on his face, resolutely says that he will defeat the mercenary Gazalt with respect, remembering his look from the beginning of the fight. He, holding the sword, called himself a genius swordsman and called on everyone to go forward. He says with blood on his face that the path of his interlocutor will be stained with blood, regardless of his strength and talent. He reflects that if Gazalt had fought more conscientiously, he would not have been able to defeat him, recognizing the superiority of his opponent in skill and experience. He explains that due to his haste, Gazalt concentrated his attacks on his neck, which allowed him to win despite the failure of the attack and the fear of Morton's reinforcements. Almark said he had another experience, and the other was glad he was okay. Morgan brought the scissors, he thanked him and asked about Wendy, who, according to another, was still sleeping on the 4th floor under the care of Mr. Ward. A man asks Mr. Ward about Wendy, while another shouts at Mr. Almark, asking if he is okay after the shots were fired. He says she's not awake yet, and the other one notes that it's not surprising, considering she did it all alone. Almark warns Wendy not to go near the window, explaining that her father's enemies have come to kill her while they hear the sounds of gunshots. He is surprised by the powerful magical energy emanating from Wendy and wonders where it comes from. Almark asks where the young lady is, and the other replies that she just left the room. A woman orders everyone to take cover on the 4th floor while security holds off the enemies in the garden. Wendy creates clones and orders everyone to run upstairs while two men discuss mastering a complex transformation spell. He firmly stated that he would not allow anyone to die, and she asked in surprise what he was saying. A man with gray hair asks to create clones of servants, and the girl insists on making a clone of herself first, since the enemies are targeting her. She calls Reggie, Mel, Ish and Marcus, checking if their location is suitable for something important. He noted with surprise that now they could barely create one animal, and she was already conjuring several moving clones at the same time. He explains that Wendy is trying to control her magical energy, but her mind isn't functioning properly right now, so she needs to use her transformation technique to the fullest. Almark assures him that everything will be fine, despite the other's panicked exclamation, and then whispers something in his ear. Morgan asks Almark to protect the house and everyone, and he grabs Wendy, whose name someone is calling. The man reported that she had lost consciousness, and the girl with a wet face said that they should run. Almark thanks Wendy and then promises to protect her. He instructs the servants to send Wendy to the 4th floor and promises that they will stop the enemies, mentioning that they will have to make do with her clone. Almark convinces the other to hurry and trust them, saying that they must protect the real Wendy, and the old man remains silent, watching them. The man approached Mr. Almark, noting that he saw things they did not notice, and promised to thank him later. He noticed that someone had left, and another ordered the young lady to be carried away and taken up to the 4th floor. He declared that was all, and the old man asked if they understood what Wendy meant by her last words. Morgan ordered them to take positions, explaining that the magic in the clones would preserve their essence even after death. Almark offered to take positions, supporting another who doubted his own strength, but decided to believe in the magic he learned at the academy. Outside Wendy's room, he explained that the place would be out of sight and assured her that everything would be fine, and she agreed. He admits to being afraid of fainting, and his interlocutor replies that he is not alone and that his enemies are experienced mercenaries with no guarantee of success. Almark explains that he has been fighting until now and that is why he was able to meet an interlocutor who admits that being afraid and sitting idly by means of death, so he is trying to survive. He fights multiple opponents, striking and parrying attacks in a fierce brawl. He notices that the mercenaries from the north are happy to find themselves in the peaceful southern lands. He feels a cold north wind in his heart and says that there is no more room for doubt in him. He moves forward resolutely, despite the wind and falling petals, mentally repeating the word forward. He prepares for battle with his sword, watching two men approaching, one of whom is confident of the success of his plan. Almark explains that he can only handle a maximum of 3 opponents at a time, and that by killing the 3 initially, the tide of battle turned in their favor. He explained that it all happened thanks to Wendy, while the 2 listened to him near the body on the ground. A man with a mustache addresses Almark, and the frightened young man reacts to his words with surprise. He admitted that he was the son of a northern mercenary, and the other asked for forgiveness and said that he needed to step away for a minute. The man apologizes to Almark, explaining that he didn't mean to hide anything, and Almark accepts the apology. The man with the mustache admitted that he immediately felt Almark's unusual aura and was finally convinced of it that night. He talks about mercenaries, their cruelty and bravery, noting that he has never met a northern mercenary before, and thinks that such people have come to them today. Several people discuss the dead and wounded guards, noting that 3 escaped and will not be punished. Almark and others discuss the attack and their regrets for the victims, expressing a desire to be stronger and prepare more seriously. He says that they shouldn't take on too much, and the other man agrees that it was their duty and they fell with honor. Almark reflects on the mercenaries' usual deaths and thanks their sacrifice for saving Wendy, noting that without them the estate would have been destroyed. The man in the suit admitted that he was shocked to realize the horror of the northern mercenaries who carried out a bloody massacre without any casualties, while 2 others were cleaning the floor. "Sorry, but I can't describe the scene because the image is cropped and the characters are not visible. Please provide the full image." Almark exclaims in surprise that he did not expect such a turn of events. He, holding a stick, reflects on the cold voice and courage of Almark, who is not afraid of enemies, and wonders about his belonging to the squad and the owners of the estate. The boy revealed that his name was Almark and that he was the son of Shadow Fong Reese, the second in command of the Black Wolf Cavalry, in response to the woman's questions. He sits against the wall with a stick and reflects on the fact that the story about his father being a blacksmith was false, and he was a mercenary from the north. A man confirms the information about Almark, and 2 others with guns shout about violence and robbery, while a third reflects on Almark's strength in the situation. He reflects on the mercenaries and says that he can be relied upon despite their terrible reputation. The group decides to focus on what's important and leave regrets for later, and she quietly agrees. He sits, hugging his knee, and thinks that he must definitely apologize to Almark, not forgetting about this and confessing his fear and hunger. He anxiously asks to protect the mansion, feeling fear and hoping that this is the right place. He anxiously asks when it will all end and thinks about hiding and waiting for everything to calm down. He was looking forward to the meeting, and the other, hiding behind the door, thought that the wait was killing him. Almark predicted that one would kill the enemy, and the observer confirmed this with horror, noticing that he was smiling. He pushed the other one sharply, warning him that he would not tolerate such behavior any longer. He holds a wooden object and someone calls him by his name Morgan. He says with a stick in his hand that he cannot allow another person to die. He says with tears in his eyes that he believes his friend who supported him and trusts the words he spoke. He said there was no room for senseless emotions in his work and noted that it was important to him that Mr. Almark saved the life of the young lady. He thanks Mr. Almark and Mr. Morgan with all his heart under the moon. Almark, crying, admits that even strong people sometimes cry, and the other man apologizes for his mistake and expresses regret. He apologizes and asks them not to hold back, and the other man insists that they are fine and do not want to detain Mr. Ward. A man with a mustache says there's a lot of work to be done, and 2 young men ask him to keep his solo victory over the mercenaries a secret. The man asks the guards to deal with the killers and expresses hope that Wendy will not consider him bloodthirsty, promising compensation to the families of the victims. She fears that if she ever says the word, she won't survive it, remembering the horror in Ward's eyes. The man thanked Almark for his assistance to the families of the victims, and he promised to keep the secret and inform the staff. He apologized for his misconception and admitted that his attitude towards the power of another was disgusting, explaining his limited knowledge by rumors and tales. He thinks Wendy is very kind, but is unlikely to change her attitude towards him even after learning about his past, and firmly states that he will not allow anyone to die. One man approaches Almark, warning him that if he wants to keep it a secret, he won't say anything either. He thanks his interlocutor by saying the word thank you. He breathes heavily and says that something is heavy, experiencing a lot of tension. He reported that all the wounded were sent to the city hospital, while another admitted that he was amazed by the number of mercenaries here. 3 dead mercenaries lie on the ground, and a voiceover says that mercenaries are not entitled to honor and this must be their way. He remembers that his father always told him this. He said that no one would stand on ceremony with them, and even the hero's own comrades would become his grave on the battlefield. The boy asked his father if he would come back for him if he died, and he answered with a serious look. He supports the girl, who says she has not yet fully recovered, and the others express joy that she is fine and no one is injured. He warns Wendy to be careful and says that she has used up all her mana, and she responds by exclaiming "ah" in surprise. He says he was worried about them and expresses relief, while another character admits she was afraid for them. He hugs the girl and asks if she's okay. She says yes, and the other guy says it's not her fault. He bursts in and forbids them to be there, and the girl says that she was looking for him in the room. The little girl insists on going there despite the man's warnings and requests to return to bed. She stated that she would go on her own. She stands in front of 4 bodies covered with sheets and looks at them in the garden by the wall. He says that being a nobleman is easier than it seems and admires Wendy, and the interlocutor agrees and admits that many people would die for him. They discuss how Wendy will have to bear the heavy burden alone and express regret about it. He stands in the darkness, admitting that he can't comfort Wendy, who is crying, and in his mind he believes that she is obliged to act like a noblewoman. Several dead men are lying on the ground, and a girl in a dress is standing next to them. He rejected the request, saying he would not forgive. Almark turned around sharply, and the other man sheepishly admitted that he had not meant to offend him. With the capital of Guarantor in the background, he asked if his interlocutor wanted to say that they had failed. He accuses another of lying and sending him north, and he confirms the destruction of Gazalt's squad and doubts their impeccability. A man in a suit doubts the skill of his opponents, while another, exhausted, shouts that "I don't know" is not an answer. He asked my lord what his look meant, and he answered with a question. He asked if anyone had said anything last, and the other one had difficulty confirming that the person had indeed said anything. He, sweating and smiling nervously, thanks for the opportunity to witness the opening of the gates, while another demands to speak faster, and a third quotes his words. He asked if that was all, and the other one said yes, and turned around, saying, "Well then." He leaves, saying that everything will be as it should be, and someone tries to catch up with him and asks what will happen to him. He slowly opens the door and enters the room, then sits down on a chair, looking around. The capital's guards arrested 5 of Gazalt's subordinates and immediately mobilized, and Lord Elman's retribution was not long in coming. The prisoners discussed the death of their commander and claimed that the Southerners could not have killed him, expressing disbelief and doubt. 3 men are discussing 5 mercenaries named Gran, and the wounded man's face is frozen in horror, and the owner had no family or servants. Almark heard from Ward all the details of the story about the unknown nobleman who tried to kill Wendy, and that no one in the capital knew a man named Gran. Wendy and Ward insist on staying, and he asks if they can stay if they are not guests. The older man thanks them, and the children insist on helping and staying, calling one of them a genius and expressing admiration. He offered to join in the cleaning, and the other agreed, and then they said that Almark took time to get used to, but Morgan quickly became friends with the servants. He noted that it was better here than on the island of Norska, although a little hot, and she replied that autumn was already felt in the wind. He asked in surprise, and she admitted that every year at this time she is consumed by loneliness, and this year it is especially noticeable. They discuss how Morgan gets along with people quickly and has gone with Mirette to participate in an eating tournament, and the reward for winning will be exquisite sweets. He said that the mission was over and they could return to Guarantor, and she replied that she would spend the rest of her holidays with her family. Almark says he already knew about Wendy's departure and thinks it's great, and the other man replies that it's time for them to go back too. He says he doesn't want them to leave, and she confirms that they are going to return to the academy and denies that she wants them to go with her. Almark notices that Wendy is trying to make up her mind and suggests that she ask openly how he can help. He asks in surprise, and she asks for forgiveness and wants to have some more fun with them. She says with tears that she was glad they came, but did not have time to spend time with them, and he listens to her with surprise. He said with a smile that they were happy to, and she covered her head with her hands from the falling hat. He noted that they had really settled in well, and she agreed that they were doing well. Before departure, the man explained that if Lords Almark and Morgan accompanied her, the lady would be safe, and one of the women admitted that she did not expect such support. He says he has been riding a horse for a long time, and his interlocutor calls him a jack of all trades and jokes that this is more about him. He says that it is possible to learn to ride a horse, but he will never become like Almark, and she replies that everyone has their own strengths. They noticed that the place had become small, and she admitted that the leaves made it difficult to see further. He explains that he usually comes here in winter, but this is the first time in summer, and confirms that this is the Barherb's winter estate. They are discussing stopping at a stream for lunch, one of them says his stomach is starting to rumble, and the other laughs and is not joking. He explained that beyond the stream there was a place called Maru Hanada, which he had named as a child because of a round spot of light in the forest. They enjoy the cool shade and admire the dinner prepared by Uncle Cedar, treating each other and discussing the taste of the food. They discuss a place called Maru Hanada and decide to go there, even though it's summer and it's unknown what it's like there. They are discussing the blooming summer mallow in the north. One of them remarks that it looks like magic. He agrees that magic is fair to everyone, and the girl reflects on the flower's unchanging beauty for everyone who sees it. He asked doubtfully if he was really the son of a northern mercenary, and the two people nearby listened to him with different emotions. Almark asks for something, and another recalls Wendy's words during the mercenary attack. He said that the three of them were in the reception area that day when they heard the sound of an attack outside, and a man asked what they were talking about. The man in the suit approaches Almark, who explains that the mercenaries haven't killed anyone yet, but Wendy mentions someone else. He asked if she had ever lost anyone close, mentioning Wendy. He said that both of them were trustworthy and therefore he would tell them everything. Almark listens to a man who says that the mistress once lost a servant who was as close as a sister, and suggests finding a more secluded place for conversation. The woman explained that Vendii treated the young lady like a sister, even though there was a difference in age and position between them. Almark asks what happened and learns from the man in the suit that they tried to kill the young lady by poisoning her. Instead of a drink, she was given opium. He said with alarm that there was poison in the drink, while others tried to stop Tyria's fall and asked to call a doctor. He says that the lady had a high temperature for several days, and strange things happened in the mansion every day. Almark asks if they found out who was behind the murder, while another notes voices from empty rooms and changing furniture, similar to the magic of the mistress. He explained that he saw a man enter the mansion disguised as a gardener and clarified that he was a mercenary from the north. He speaks with heaviness about the northern mercenaries, while another notes with alarm the repeated failures. She sadly thinks about the fact that the man, driven into a corner, committed suicide, and it was never possible to find out why he attempted to take the life of the lady. Almark says that the lady either cried all day or withdrew into herself after her illness, avoiding everyone, including Elman and his wife. He reflects that a lot of time has passed, but no one could help the lady, and it was difficult for her, although he himself asked her whether it was worth telling this story. He says that Mr. Elman was worried and the director of the Magical Academy came to him unaccompanied to talk to the lady alone. Almark recalls meeting the director of the academy as a child and understands that his life's path was determined then, reflecting on a conversation with his father. They talked for a long time, then went out, and the woman's face became calm, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her, but Elman was very worried. A man with a beard says that the girl has great potential and will be sent to a magic academy, and another man recounts Mr. George's words. Almark admitted that he could no longer be a support for the lady and asked them to take care of her, explaining his worries. The two ask Mr. Ward to protect her and say they don't have to bow down. The man explains that for the first time in a long time he felt tears and thanks Mr. Ward for believing him despite his background. He promises to protect Wendy and thanks her for her trust, assuring her that he will not let her down. He said that they didn't need it, and the other one said that it wasn't worth doing. The image shows a man with a tired look saying that he can't take it anymore and asking not to be disturbed. He reminded them that summer would soon be over, and they, along with two companions, left. She promised to return after the holidays, and those gathered agreed to wait for her at the academy, thanking her for her visit. He wonders if it's possible to break up so easily and wants to support her, but doubts whether it's necessary now. He thinks out loud about the need to say something important and is afraid of being late if he leaves this place. He says that she shouldn't take on too much because she has them, and she replies that she wanted to say something completely different. Almark reflects on how empty words will not find a response in Wendy's heart, despite his attempts to say something. Someone approaches Almark, asking him to listen. Almark explains that they are magicians, and the other says that he does not know how to use magic, despite this. He says that the wait for the white carriage is still a little longer, and the interlocutor agrees. He called Almark by name, and he asked with a serious look if they were talking about his body. Almark reflects on his father's feelings and his magic, and his companion admits that he did not want to be a magician and perhaps forgot about it because of memories. He explains that he, Wendy, and the interlocutor are magicians, confirming this with confidence. The two walk down the street, and the woman at the counter says she doesn't know what she would do without the other person. Someone calls Wallace to stand up, speaking to him from a dark speech cloud against a backdrop of roots and grass. Almark says that if he continues to lie in the darkness, it will consume him, and he must fulfill his role, otherwise the world will drown in blood. He says all that remains is to consume her before she consumes him. He wearily agreed, saying, "Okay," leaning on his arm and looking wounded. He stretched, thinking that it was summer break at the academy and the students wouldn't see him relaxed. Almark and his companion returned home and were met by a man who noted that they had been gone for a long time, and Almark admitted that they had to stay a little longer because of the heat. He is surprised, asking if he has changed, and the other man replies that he has changed quite a lot, but is still the same. Almark notices that the boy has become a little rounder, and he is surprised, asking if he has changed, and Almark says that summer holidays make boys grow up. He suggested that he, too, had learned a lot on the journey, and he agreed that the main thing was to try the dishes of the places you were going to. He said that he used to travel alone, but this time it was fun with Almark, and all thanks to Morgan. Almark said it was good, expressing approval. He told her that he was going to have dinner with teacher FIA, and she asked him not to tell anyone about Morgan. Morgan says goodbye to Judo, promising to ask his opinion on the dishes, and he advises him to rest, realizing that he is tired. They walk with backpacks, discussing their excitement and assuming that there will be cold soup for dinner.